Meneer de Voorzitter.
From paragraph 142 of your statement, you begin to deal with what happened at Roots.
Dit is correct, meneer de Voorzitter.
And it was a reaction from the call-up by the Provincial Commissioner to all of you.
Dit is correct, meneer de Voorzitter.
As you say in paragraph 143, those sessions were facilitated by Brigadier van Graan from National Office.
He is a legal officer from National, this correct, meneer de Voorzitter.
What was your particular role at Roots?
Meneer de Voorzitter, my rol as operationele bevelvoerder was basis dieselfde as al die bevelvoerders wat na Roots toe opgeroep was. Elke groep bevelvoerder, die oorhoofse bevelvoerder, operationele bevelvoerder, het dan in daardie dae gesit, dink dit was, as ek onder korreksie, 9 dae, wat ons dan al die feite probeer by mekaar kry het, om die, wat ons nou noem as Exhibit L, as ook narrative tot Exhibit L saam te stel.
Let's take it slowly. You remember again.
Ek vra om verskoning. So, my rol daar was om alle moontlike feite en inligting wat van die grond af gegee was, wat ons genoem het aan die bevelvoerders. Die bevelvoerders het gekom en dit dan so oorgedra aan die persone in Roots. Kolonel Visser was getaak om al die inligting dan te noteer en dan die Exhibit L en die narrative saam te stel. Die bevelvoerders het dan ook in verskeie, kan ek sê, kleiner groepies opgebreek, soos wat ons die dag geontplooi was op die 16de. Byvoorbeeld, as ek 'n voorbeeld kan noem, die Lemmetjiesstraat groep onder kolonel Makubela sou dan na 'n groep toe gegaan het. Kolonel Mere met die openbare orde polisieeringslede saam met kolonel Pietsie sou in 'n spesifieke wegbreekgroepie gewees het. En dan die persone wat in die gesamentlike operasionele sentrum was, sou dan na 'n spesiale sekere wegbreekgroepie gegaan het. En sou ook die onderhandelaars saam met my in die voertuig. Ons het dan al hierdie inligting probeer skematies uitlê op flipcharts, as ook al die inligting wat by mekaar gebring is. Daardie inligting is teruggebring na die, kan ek sê, die Roots vergadering, wat in 'n groot saal plaasgevind het. En dit is dan deur middel van 'n projektor al die detail probeer deurgee, kronologies. En daaruit het ons die Exhibit L saamgestel.
We also deal with various concerns that have been raised around the police operation, commencing at paragraph 146 of your statement.
Correct, meneer de Voorzitter.
One of those concerns, if I can ask that we flight slide 181 of Exhibit L. You'd recall this is the visuals you had at the 2:30 briefing on the 16th.
Dit is correct, meneer de Voorzitter.
But the reason I want us to have that on the screen is that we are having there as Nyala 6 closing that gap between the police line and the small crawl.
Correct, meneer de Voorzitter.
And on that formation, the dispersal would have happened using the gap between the small crawl and the other crawl with the zinc house on it.
Dit is correct, meneer de Voorzitter.
Now, one of the concerns raised is that when the militant group came to that, after that gap was closed, it is contended that Nyala 5 ought to have closed that very gap where the dispersal was going to happen. And so the contention goes, the militant group would not have come to the police line. That's one of the criticisms that are raised there.
Meneer de voorsitter, ja, dit sou egter nie moontlik gewees het. Op daardie stadium, tydens die aanval op incident 1, asook wat ons gesien het op incident 2, was Nyala 4 genoodsaak om vinniger verby Nyala 5 te beweeg. So, ek het reeds getuig dat dit sou baie roekeloos en gevaarlik gewees het vir Nyala 5 se persone om uit te klim, aangesien 'n draadontplooiing nie net gebeur in sekondes nie. Dit het fisiese mannekrag nodig om te ontplooi. Dit eerstens, en dan die gebied tussen die klein kraal, wat dan toegemaak is met Nyala 4, wat teen hom geparkeer is, die gebied tussen die klein kraal en die sinkhuisie, wat aan die groot kraal geleë is. Dit is die enigste opening wat ons dan oopgelos het vir die polisie om na fase 2 te beweeg. Sou Nyala 5 daardie spasie toemaak, was dit nutteloos gewees en het ons net gesit met die gevolge soos al die vorige dae. Ons sal weer van vooraf, die groep sou aan die linkerkant gewees het, die polisie aan die regterkant, en hulle sou nog steeds met die gevaarlike wapens onbeheer rondbeweeg het, en die dreigemente en die geweld en die insidente wat voorheen plaasgevind het, kon heel waarskynlik weer plaasgevind het. Die opdrag wat ons gekry het was wel om die mense te ontwapen en dan te arresteer, sou die persone nie gehoor gee aan die waarskuwing nie. So in kort, tussen die klein kraal en die sinkhuisie was die enigste gebied oopgelos vir die polisie dan om uit te beweeg, om dan fase 2 deur te voer, as ook dan daarna fase 3.
At that time, you told us yesterday where Papa 1 was the Nyala in which you were.
Papa 1 was my voertuig, correct meneer Vorst.
And you had already driven past where the zinc case is it not?
Dit is correct meneer die voorsitter. Toe ek kom waar ons praat van incident 3, was ek reeds verby die sinkhuisie. Die sinkhuisie was op my regter agterkant op my 5 uur in polisietaal.
So if Nyala 5 was to close that gap, you would have been closed on the side of the protesters, the strikers.
Meneer de voorsitter, ja, as die bevelvoerder in Nyala 5 wel besluit het en gesien het die mense storm en die draad op 'n manier wat ek nie glo kan in daai kort tyd gebeur het nie, maar op 'n manier uitgegooi het, sou dit 'n groot risiko gewees het, nie net vir my nie, maar ek dink ook die 2 Casper voertuie en Papa 11 wat reeds voor my was. Ek dink ons sou heeltemal geïsoleer gewees het van die res van die groep en ons sou geen hulp gehad het van agteraf.
The other concern raised about the police operation relates to the contention that you ought to have gone through the coordinate search first. Now, did the police have adequate intelligence to undertake that as their first tactical option?
Nie op daardie stadium nie, nee, meneer die voorsitter.
Did you know where everybody was? Did you know where everybody was?
Yes, I didn't hear so you repeated the question. I didn't hear it the first time. You asked, did you know where everybody was? That's your question. What's the answer? By everybody, you mean among the strikers who had dangerous weapons and so on?
Those were armed strikers.
Dank u, meneer de voorzitter. Die inligting tot ons beskikking, meneer de voorzitter, is dat die misdaadintelligensie en die speurdiens, ook na die maandag incident, het die woorde wat gebruik was, dis faceless people, en die inligting het deurgekom na ons toe, dat hulle het nie op daardie stadium geweet waar presies hierdie persone woonagtig is. Ek weet daar was tussen die generale staf en die mynbestuur ook gesprek, as ook met die speurders wat dan dit opgevolg het. So daar kan met geen sekerheid vir ons gesê word dat persoon A, B of C presies in hierdie vertrek, hostel of kamer woon nie. So dit sou op daardie stadium vir ons geen doel gedien het om dan 'n spesifieke plek te gaan koördineer sonder die nodige inligting nie.
And post-fact, we know now that there were other strikers who were sleeping at copy 3. Was this information known to you at the time?
Meneer de voorzitter, nee. Ek het getuig dat ons het in die aande tot ongeveer 10:00 gestaan en wag dat almal uiteen gaan. Selfs so dat ons van nagsig probeer gebruik gemaak het flitse om te sien of daar iemand by kopie 1 en 2 is, spesifiek vir die doel om seker te maak dat dit veilig is en almal uiteen gaan. In hindsight nou het dit tot die inligting gekom dat die persone wel op kopie 3 wat dan agter was, geslaap het in die aande. Wat ek na die tyd verneem het.
The other criticism relates to a contention that the strikers were not warned ahead of the barbed wire being uncoiled.
Dit is korrek, meneer voorsitter, dit is waaroor ek dink gister of eergister getuig het.
Is it accurate though? Is it accurate that they were not warned and explained to what the purpose of the barbed wire was?
Nee, meneer de voorsitter, dit is absoluut nie so nie. As ek reg onthou het ek gesê, ek het met die public address system 12 keer met hulle gekommunikeer, waarvan ek dink 3 of 4 keer was pertinent oor die draad en die doel van die draad. So dit was gekommunikeer met die protesters.
The entries in the occurrence book relate to saying Papa 1, but what's your reaction to that?
Nee, de voorzitter, ja, ons verwys spesifiek na 2, 1017, 1018, waar dit in die voorvalleboek geskryf is, Papa 1 rapporteer. Ek dink die persone beweeg om die kraal en op 'n ander stadium Papa 1 rapporteer, ek dink 'n aanval of iets ek het nie VB voor my op hierdie stadium. Maar dit was duidelik nie Papa 1 nie. Die persone wat die VB gevat het en die notas gemaak het, ek dink die Papa 1 moet vervang word deur Chopper 1. Want op daardie stadium, dit was vir my onmoontlik om te sien van waar my posisie was en die wat gerapporteer was in die VB.
In fact, against entry 1017, it says Papa 1 reporting the group are moving to the TRT members. That you did not witness.
Ek het dit inderdaad nie gesien nie, meneer die voorsitter.
It is triple F25, Chair.
I see it's triple F25, and what page are you on?
I'm on page 25.
25, thank you.
And for the convenience of the commissioners, when we deal with the evidence of Kenneth Remark, he will himself own up to have been making those reports from Chopper 1.
I see they are headed situation reports, both entry 1016 and entry 1017 and 1018. Although 1018, in fact, is a conflation of a number of reports that were received. So let's leave, presumably from various people. So let's leave 1018 out of it. But 1016 specifically says Chopper 1 reported. 1017 situation report, Papa 1 reporting. Now, did you in fact give situation reports back to the JOC?
Nie op daardie stadium nie, nee meneer die voorsitter.
There's an earlier reference, 1014, SITREP P1 reported that the union rep wants to go to the copy to tell the group that the mine management doesn't want to negotiate. Who would have been responsible for that situation report?
Meneer die voorsitter, uit my getuienis, as jy kyk na die tyd, dit was om 1440, dit was die tyd wat ons by Fort Holdinghede 1 was, met al die bevelvoerders, wat ons dan gebrief het. So my voertuig, so roepsein, sou nog steeds gebruik gewees het as Papa 1. Ek kan egter nie sê op daardie stadium wie die persoon was, ek vermoed dit kan kolonel McIntosh, wat dan in my voertuig was.
So that situation report appears to come from your Inyala, but you weren't in the Inyala yourself at the time because the briefing was taking place. Is that either was taking place or just finished? Is that correct?
Die voorval het inderdaad plaasgevind waar meneer Matunjo daar was en dit is deurgegee. Die roepsein Papa 1 is nie aan my as persoon toegeken nie, maar aan die voertuig. En die roepsein is dan ook op die dak van die Inyala met verf gemerk P1.
Thank you.
There is also a concern raised about the arresting methods that were effected on the 16th. In particular, there was concern raised about a police officer's boot on the face of one of the people who were arrested. Do you remember that?
Correct, meneer voorsitter.
Can you comment about that?
Meneer voorsitter, alhoewel ek dit nie self waargeneem het op die dag nie, kan ek net uit 'n operasionele bevelvoerder hoe ons normaalweg te werk gaan, sou ons in 'n normale operasionele situasie protesters of persone gewapen benader en die doel was om hulle te ontwapen en dan te arresteer en sou dan enige van die taktiese lede 'n vuurwapen, veral 'n langwapen in die hand gehad het, is dit dan nodig om eider die voet of die knie te gebruik om die persoon onder bedwang te hou. Dit word gedoen, ek dink ek het dit in my verklaring genoem, controlled and disciplined way, waar dan ook seksieleiers en bevelvoerders teenwoordig is by elke groep. So indien die persoon benader word met 'n vuurwapen, sou dit heeltemal roekeloos wees om die wapen dan neer te sit, of wat ons noem, ons die sling aan R5 of 'n aanvalsgeweer, om die sling agter die rug te sit en dan met die hande die persoon te benader. Dit stel jy heeltemal bloot en dit stel jy in gevaar. So beheerst kan die persoon dan die voet plaas of met die knie op die persoon se rug, terwyl die persoon dan deur 'n ander persoon genader moet word en gedeursoek moet word vir enige gevaarlike wapens en op daardie stadium weer wegbeweeg tot die persoon gearresteer is. Ons sien dit baie in gevalle waar ons plekke doen soos onwettige tavernes, shebeens, waar daar 'n hele paar mense is en ons vermoed dat van die mense gewapen is. Dit is onmoontlik om al die mense op daardie stadium net onder wapen te hou. So indien iemand beweeg en jy vermoed daai persoon het iets by hom, sou u dan nader gaan en die persoon dan so onder bedwang hou.
I would like us to deal with other criticism which Mr. White then directs at you in particular.
Paragraph 156 and following of the statement.
Indeed, Chair. I want to deal with your statement dated 26 October. Indeed, Chair, or otherwise called Annexure K. Firstly, what provoked the making of this statement in particular?
Meneer die voorsitter, dit is die handgeskrewe, ja, op die toneel. Ek was genader gewees om die verklaring te maak rondom ondersoek wat gelei was deur, as ek korrek is, luitenant-generaal Moeno van die speurdiens. Daar was 'n bewering gemaak dat daar op toneel 2 by kopie 3 wapens geskuif of neergesit of daar was verskeie beweringe gemaak. En ek was genader gewees om dan vir die ondersoek 'n verklaring te maak oor wat ek waargeneem het op toneel 2. En dit is die verklaring is dan afgeneem, ek dink deur generaal Johnson van die speurdiens.
Your other statement is Exhibit G13, where there is a reference about all the people. Can you explain that for us?
That's the statement dated the 19th of August, 3 days after the shooting. So is that the first statement that you made?
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter, ek het hom as strippe G13. As dit die korrekte een is.
So what is the paragraph to which you're referring, Mr. Semenya?
In paragraaf 19, as ek kan help, meneer die voorsitter.
Sorry, paragraph 19, and I take it you are referring to essentially the third and fourth sentences, is that?
Indeed, Chair. Just so that we bring everybody on board, there the statement reads, the crowd that assembled on the copy was unruly and very aggressive. They were all armed with extremely dangerous homemade and bought weapons, which they clearly intended using to injure or kill SABC members. They acted as one group, and all of them associated themselves with the actions of each other. All of them had the same intention and goal. And Mr. White says your treatment of the 4,000 people as one group was a serious problem. Paraphrased.
Meneer die voorsitter, dankie. Ek dink egter wat meneer White miskien nie bewus was nie, is dat as ons kyk aan die bokant van die verklaring, sal ons sien dat daar is in handgeskrewe 'n Marikana mas, ek dink 134 van 8/2012, handgeskrewe bo aan die dokument. Hierdie verklaring was nie bedoel vir die kommissie of vir die sitting soos ons hom nou ken nie. Hierdie verklaring was afgeneem en ek verneem my verklaring was een van die heel eerste verklarings, 2 dae.
A15, you know. It's A15. If you look at the top right-hand corner, it's A15.
Die woorde, dis korrek.
Normally, when I was public prosecutor, A15 indicated that this would have been the 15th statement filed in the docket. Is that right?
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, as ek net kan verduidelik hoekom ek die verklaring afgelê het. Die verklaring was wel afgeneem vir 'n dossier, soos ek sê, nie as getuienis in die kommissie soseer, maar die mas wat hier aangedui was die dossier wat geopen was vir die 259 persone wat gearresteer was op die dag. So my laaste paragraaf 19 is 'n samevatting van die persone wat dan gearresteer was by kopie 2. Dit is waar ons gesê het, almal was gewapen, almal het dieselfde doel gehad, en dit is dan soos dit aan my gerapporteer was, en ek het dan ook die verklaring gemaak vir die spesifieke dossier wat dan hof toe is.
The other criticism that is leveled is that the briefing ought to have been done by a POPs commander and it was not. What's your reaction to that?
Nee, die voorsitter, net die vraag, die aanvanklike briefing na ons.
Yeah, we're dealing with your paragraph 157.
Can you repeat the question, please, Mr. Semenya?
The other criticism is that the briefing of the commanders there was supposed to have been done as required by Standing Order 262 to be done by a POP commander as the operational commander. You personally had to do it.
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, dit is korrek. Waarna hier verwys word is Standaarde 262 in paragraaf 10. As ons onthou, en ek neem aan daar is so al getuig, is dat Standaarde 262 geskryf is vir 'n normale crowd management situasie. So dit sou iets wees wat vooraf bekend gewees het, wat aan 'n lopende gebeurtenis opgebou het, waarvoor daar 'n aansoek ingedien was, wat ons noem is section 4, wat aangedui net stadiger, waar daar voor behoorlike beplanning was, waarvoor daar 'n section 4 vergadering gehou was. Dit is 'n vergadering tussen al die rolspelers, waarin insluit die polisie, die organiseerders, as ook die persone betrokke. Die roete sou dan bekend gewees het, die rolspelers sou bekend gewees het, en in hierdie geval was daar geen so detail nie, en hierdie was 'n hibriede omgewing en situasie, en dit is waar ons daarom vir Luitenant-Kolonel Scott ingebring het, omdat dit nie spesifieke 262 net crowd management situasie was nie, maar 'n hibriede situasie, waar hy dan die beplanning gedoen het, en dit dan oorgegee het aan ons. Ons was almal wel deel van die gesamentlike operasionele sentrum.
And when you say we were all there, you're referring to who? Were there any POP commanders during that briefing which was done by Colonel Scott at 1430?
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter. Al die vorige openbare orde bevelvoerders wat ek genoem het met al die jare diens, was teenwoordig in die gesamentlike operasionele sentrumvergaderings in die oggend, tydens die voorligtings, as ook tydens die 1430 voorligting.
They were in the dock in the morning, 6 o'clock meeting. They weren't there for the 1:30 meeting, but you say they were in the forward holding area 1 at 2:30 when Lieutenant Colonel Scott and Brigadier Pretorius, I think it was, came, and the briefing was given in his on his laptop, as it were, or via his laptop, next to his Vito vehicle. Is that correct? When all the POP people were there, the commanders were there at 2:30 at that point.
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter. Al die openbare orde polisieerings persone wat spesifiek getaak was. Ek het gesê, ook getuig, ek dink uitsluitend Luitenant-Kolonel Mere, wat ek dan gevoel het moet agterbly indien daar enigiets sou gebeur, maar hy was persoonlik deur myself gebrief met die terugkeer.
Were there any POP element briefings that were not given at 1430 relative to your operation? Was there anything that is POP related that was not understood by any of your members?
Nee, meneer die voorsitter. Soos ek reeds getuig het, die voorligting wat gegee was, die planne wat gemaak was, as ook die fases wat baie goed verstaan deur die bevelvoerders, die openbare orde polisieering bevelvoerders op die grond.
Was there any opportunity to give detailed plans to the commanders on how the operation should be done?
Meneer die voorsitter, nee, as ons kyk na die tydsaspek, het ek gesê, ek praat onder korreksie, ek dink 3 uur terug gewees, by die groep voor, En indien ek dan sou verwag het dat die groepbevelvoerders teruggegaan het en elke seksiebevelvoerder voorligting gaan gee het en vir die seksiebevelvoerders verwag het om vir my 'n skriftelike beplanning terug te gee of notas wat presies hulle beplan en hoe hulle takings en waar hulle mense gaan uitsit. Ek dink as dit meneer White is, dit is totaal onmoontlik. Dit word gedoen.
So the short point is, presumably the sun would almost have gone down by the time they came back with those plans, and you couldn't have launched the operation because it was too dark. Is that correct? I don't know how long they would have taken to perform this task, but presumably it would have taken some time, and I understand the approach of sunset was an issue which was a matter of concern. Am I correct?
Meneer voorsitter, ja, aan die een kant is jy korrek dat die operasie sou dan wel nie kan plaasvind nie. Die ander kant is dan ook dat ek sê weer staan order 262 was geskryf spesifiek vir openbare orde polisieering crowd management situasie waar daar genoeg tyd is voor die tyd waar aansoek gedoen word, ons 'n behoorlike wat ons noem 'n OCT plan opstel en dan uit die plan uit kom die seksiebevelvoerders dan terug met briefing sertifikate wat hulle dan vir ons aandui hoe en waar hulle mense kan plaas.
You say OCT plan. Are those the letters OCT? What do they stand for?
Dit is die Operational Commanders Training, operasionele bevelvoerders opleiding wat ons kry waar elke bevelvoerder spesifiek pertinent opgelei is hoe om 'n detail beplanning te skryf.
Is it unusual to have briefings in such a short space of time?
Commissaris, nie glad nie. Dit gebeur baie van die kere dat die polisie word daagliks blootgestel aan gevaarlike negatiewe kontak situasies waar ons inligting nou kry en ons moet reageer in letterlik sekondes of minute. Ons het daarvoor wat ons noem mobilisasieorders waar die lede dan gebel word en op 'n breekdeel moet reageer en waarop hulle dan wel voorligting gegee word na 'n spesifieke gebied toe. So al die inligting is ongelukkig nooit lank voor die tyd tot ons beskikking nie.
One of the other criticism is that the briefing was unclear whether there was going to be a dispersal action or an encircling action. What was the understanding at 14:30? What was the operation going to be?
Meneer die voorsitter, beide. Ek kan nie dink waar die verwarring ingekom het. Die voorligting was baie duidelik geweest dat nadat die verdedigingslyn in plek was wat ons genoem het die defensive measure, sou die polisie dan uitbeweeg en hulle sou dan gewag het vir my as operasionele bevelvoerder om dan die nodige waarskuwings te gee, die nodige tyd te gee om uiteen te gaan. Daarna sou dit in my opdrag gewees het om die lede uiteen te dryf, daarna te isoleer wat die woord encircle in betref, daarna te ontwapen en dan te arresteer. So ek dink die 4 beginsels, as ek dit so kan noem, van die plan was baie duidelik uiteengesit van die bevelvoerders en hierdie fases is in geruimheid al onder die bevelvoerders aan.
Am I correct in saying your point is that the commanders were shown what we now see as slide 181 in Exhibit L?
Yeah.
That was what was on the laptop of Colonel Scott. I think you told us that yesterday.
Dit is correct.
And that's what everybody saw. Is that correct?
Dit is correct, meneer.
And what you said was like in the form in which we see it in slide 181.
Dit was inderdaad.
And that indicates phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So that anyone who had an opportunity to see that would have had no difficulty understanding the 3 phases and the scope for confusion was correspondingly reduced. Would that be correct?
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter. Ek het ook gister getuig dat die lede die geleentheid gehad het om dan vrae te vra en daar was interaksie gewees en die verduideliking was 100%.
Were some of the commanders in possession of some hard copies of a Google Earth map that had been handed out at some previous stage where the encirclement of the actual copy was tabled?
Meneer voorsitter, nee, ek kan nie presies sê dat hulle was. Ek dink nie daar was enige aanduiding van enige encirclement van 'n koppie. Ek het nie so iets gesien. Die enigste een wat op 'n stadium gegee was die eerste voorligting waar die Nyala 6 nog in 'n westelike rigting gedraai het na die koppie toe. Dit is, ek dink my naam is onderaan een van die slides. Ek dink van die bevelvoerders in die jok het so iets by hulle gehad, maar daai beplanning was kan ek sê van die tafel af toe die nuwe een aan ons verduidelik gewees het. Want die uitgooi van die draad, alles het verskil van die vorige een.
Might have the confusion arisen from that earlier briefing as regards the encirclement of the Koppie, and now this new plan where the barbed wire was only used as a defensive measure?
Meneer die voorsitter, in alle eerlikheid, hoe ek verstaan waar die onduidelikheid of die confusion vandaan kom oor die woordjie encircle, die barbed wire groep, soos ons hulle bekendstel, kolonel Makubela se groep, was verantwoordelik om toe te maak sodat die encirclement wel kan plaasvind. So die mense verstaan dit verkeerd deur te sê die lemmetjiesdraad moes gebruik gewees het vir encirclement. Miskien is dit waar die verwarring inkom in die verklarings of waar die lede verstaan het, maar indien jy met hulle in gesprek sal tree, sal hulle vir u verduidelik dat hulle moes toemaak sodat die openbare orde polisieering die encirclement kan doen en die arrestasie.
But I think the point is that this slide 181, that is a Google Earth picture. And the question is really whether you're aware, whether it is correct that a copy of the same Google Earth picture had been given to the commanders earlier, some time earlier, not on the same day I think, but earlier, on a previous day, on which a different plan was set out. I think that's the thrust of the question. Are you able to answer it from your own knowledge, or don't you know?
Ek dra nie op hierdie stadium kennis daarvan nie.
But it's easy to explain this, is it not, Brigadier? There is a concept of encircling the copy with a barbed wire. That's where that word is used. There is another encircling of small groups. Is that done with a barbed wire for the arrest?
Nee, glad nie, meneer die voorsitter. Onder normale omstandighede buite in Marikana, u sal nooit draad gebruik om 'n groep toe te maak en dan te probeer encircle. Sou enigiets gebeur, 'n harde geluid, dit werk dieselfde as in 'n stadion. U gaan kry wat ons noem 'n stampede en die draad sou dan 'n dreiging gewees het vir die groep. So nee, dit kan nie gebeur nie.
Well, there's another point, isn't there, that there weren't any other Nyalas on the other side of the Koppie to complete the actual encirclement, if that was ever thought it was going to be rolled out like that.
Nee, commissaris, ons het net die 6 draadkarre gehad op die dag en hulle was aangedui soos op die foto op slide 181.
Another way of making the same point is as follows. If you look at slide 181, you see where the wire is depicted. That's part of phase 1. Right? There's then a reference to phase 2, and it seems clear that phase 2 is going to happen more or less where those 2 white arrows are. The one being indicating the first line and the other indicating the second line. It was in fact going to be in front of that, I take it. So
correct.
That was not at the place where the wire would already have been I don't like that word deployed, but wire had already been uncoiled, as indicated on the slide, which was going to be part of phase 1. So there wouldn't have been, there wouldn't have been any wire left, and B, the wire, where the wire was going to be put was indicated, and the action for phase 2, and I take it phase 3, was going to take place at a point west of the wire. Is that correct?
Dit is correct, meneer die voorsitter.
And Colonel Makubela was in charge of all the Nyalas that were going to deploy the barbed wires. That's correct.
Dit is korrek, commissaris. Die opdrag het wel moes deur die operasionele bevelvoerder kom met wanneer om te begin, maar hy was fisies saam beweeg saam met elke voertuig oor die uitrol van die draad, ja.
And the manner in which it was uncoiled was upon his instructions to the drivers of the Nyalas with the barbed wire.
Dit was definitief gedoen, commissaris.
One of the big criticisms that Mr. White launches is that the decision to disperse and disarm the strikers was placing both the police and the strikers at risk. Did you, in your entire career, 20 years almost, in pop environment, see at strikers charge at the police line in the manner that happened on the 16th?
Meneer die voorsitter, nee glad nie. Ek dink wat ons hier gesien het, wat ek beskryf as 'n volskaalse aanval deur 'n groot getal persone op die polisielyn. Dis die eerste keer in my loopbaan, as ook ek dink in Suid-Afrika se geskiedenis waar dit gebeur het. Dit was nêrens voorheen aan ons gerapporteer nie op enige kursusse waar ons was dat so iets gebeur nie. Ek dink 'n tipiese voorbeeld is wat ons ek het daarna verwys in Mei maand laas jaar, waar kolonel Marafi hulle 'n soortgelyke voorval was by Impala myn, waar die strykers ook gestorm het, selfe mynwerkers, waar die openbare orde polisieering geskied het, waar die TRT genoodsaak was dan om waarskuwingsskote in die grond te skiet, en dit het ook gewerk, en op daardie stadium het hulle omgedraai en weggehardloop. So, nie net die waarskuwingsskote nie, maar partykeer die standgranate en die traanrook is partykeer meer as genoeg om 'n skade te ontmoedig. Ek kan miskien net sê dat ons het soveel, dit is amper ondenkbaar om te sien die getalle wat die polisie en die hulpbronne wat ons gehad het op daardie dag. Ons het redelike excessive show of force, as ek dit so kan noem, gehad op daardie dag. Dit moet sekerlik 'n afskrikwaarde gehad het. Die draad was daar, die waterkanonne, die afstand, die kommunikasie, hoeveel keer met die skare oor die public address system, die sigbaarheid, die patrollies gewees, as ook die leiers se pogings om met hulle mense te skakel. Wat meneer Mtunjo dan self te kenne gegee het, lyk my die mense het nie na hom geluister nie. So alles in ag genome, nee meneer die voorsitter, ek het glad nie verwag dat daar so iets plaasvind nie.
And in your entire experience in the police service, have you seen an unfurling of a barbed wire provoke attack on the police?
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, soos ek reeds getuig het, ek was op meer as een geleentheid het ons van die draad gebruik gemaak, en die draad het altyd gedien as 'n beskermingsmateriaal of om iets af te sper. Ons het nog nooit draad uitgegooi waarop dan die mense gereageer het en gestorm het in die rigting van die draad nie. Nog nooit nie.
Have you ever used the wire in an open rural context, such as we had here, as opposed to an urban context or suburban context, where there were roads and narrower spaces to fence off? You understand the point I'm putting to you? Have you had this kind of rural unrolling of the wire in an area such as that where the events that we're busy investigating took place?
Nee, die voorsitter, as ek nou mooi moet dink, miskien die geval van Vryburg, waar dit nader aan 'n nedersetting was, maar ek dink op daardie stadium was dit in 'n grondpad gegooi, wat dan nie stedelik was nie, nee. As ek so vinnig moet dink. Ek dink die ander gevalle was, die Ventersdorp geval was in 'n dorp. Ek dink generaal Mpembe het verwys op 'n stadium, het ons bo aan die Botswana, tussen Ramatlabama, Botswana, op 'n stadium was daar, ek dink 'n probleem, ek kan die feite onthou nie, daar was 'n ding met die weermag gewees wat ook wou inbeweeg het, op 'n stadium, dit gaan oor lone of stryk, en daar het hulle ook, weet ek, die draad gegooi, wat dan in die veld was, nie soseer op die teerpad, om 'n spesifieke pad te blok nie. So dit het al voorheen gebeur.
Thank you.
Any previous experience of the police where you have 200-300 strikers with a plethora of weapons and charging at the police before?
Nee, voorsitter, ja, dit is waarna ek verwys het in my vorige getuienis oor die Vryburg voorval, as ook in Mei maand waar dit gebeur het by die Impala myn. Ons is verskeie kere aangeval met klippe, petrolbomme, daardie tipe van goed waar die paaie toegepak was en waar gemeenskap ongelukkig was met dienslewering. Myself was aangeval deur verskeie groepe in 'n gebied hier naby Carletonville wat ons nou ken as Kutsong. Daardie jare, ek dink dit was 394, waar ek fisies self in Nyala was, wat aangeval was deur persone en petrolbomme waarop ons geskiet was. So ja, ek was al in sulke omstandighede gewees.
If I show you slide 121 of Exhibit L, does it remotely reflect past police experience?
Nee, meneer de voorsitter, ek dink in die geval, die militante groep wat ons hier sien, dit was die eerste, wat ek het so beleef het, dat die optrede wel so dreigend direk na die polisie toe was.
Slide 172, any previous police experience of that behavior? Slide 172 of Exhibit L.
Meneer de voorsitter, nie soseer met die panga in die voorgrond, maar die knopkieries en stokke was al verskeie kere in optogte gebruik, wat ons dan ook die persone gewaarsku het dat u die reg om in 'n optog deel te neem, maar ongewapen en vreedsaam, waarop dan wat ons noem die marshals vir ons daarna aandag gegee het, en meeste van die kere is dit dan tersyde gelê, maar nie met gewapen, nie met pangas en spiese in 'n optog nie.
Could the police have reasonably foreseen incident 1 happening?
Chairperson?
Or at least the planners?
Well, is the witness now going to draw a legal conclusion about reasonable foresight?
What is reasonably foreseeable is to some extent a factual question. There's no law that tells you what's reasonably foreseeable.
Okay.
And he can speak from the point of view of a policeman who knows what police can foresee. His answer obviously won't be binding on us, but I don't think I can stop him asking the question. It may help us. So.
We acknowledge Mr. Mpofu, Chair.
What is that?
I will be very discourteous of you not to do so. Okay, let's proceed.
Was it anticipated during the planning that something of the nature as we now know it as Incident 1 was going to happen?
Meneer die voorsitter, nee, as ek kan verwys na 2 dele in my verklaring, paragraaf 158 waarmee meneer White die tweede sin sê ek, I did not foresee that the armed strikers would charge on the police line when the police deployed the barbed wire. Wat ons wel voorsien het is voorheen in my verklaring paragraaf 77 waar ons gesê het the barbed wire would also delay the advancing strikers should they decide to attack the police by advancing the police line and move in between the police members. Die verskil tussen die 2 paragrawe is dat ons het wel voorsien sou ons met fase 2 uitbeweeg en ons dan die protestergroep wat weier om uiteen te gaan begin uiteendryf, dat daar wel 'n konfrontasie kon plaasvind. Deurdat indien ons die persone uiteendryf, daar is van hulle wat hulle mag teengesit het. En daarom sou ons dan van ons standgrenade, waterkanonne, rubber gebruik gemaak word en in so 'n mate die taktiese reaksie eenheid agter ons gehad het wat dan een van hulle doele was om te help om arrestasietegnieke uit te voer met die persone wat hulle dan sou teesit, maar net tydens die opvolg en die arrestasie.
So what one really should do is to qualify what you say in paragraph 77, the last sentence,
Ja.
by making it clear that the potential attack that you were talking about was one that would possibly take place during the course of the operation once the phase 2 is commenced.
Korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
So you didn't foresee that they might decide to attack before you actually started with phase 2. Is that correct?
Dit is wat ek in paragraaf 158
How many threats had you received in the course of the day that they would attack you?
sê weer, meneer.
How many threats had you received from them, from their leader, that they would attack the police, kill the police, and so on?
Meneer
I think you said 6 yesterday, but I wasn't sure where the 6 came from. But
Ek kan teruggaan na my verklaring.
Yes,
Ek het dit gemerk as 6, meneer die voorsitter. Maar dit aan die media gemaak is, die polisie, hulle soek ons nie daar nie, en dan spesifiek 3 gevalle na ons toe, waar ons dan sou doodgaan, skrywe of 'n papier wat ons moes steek in die wêreld sou sien, as ook dat ons voertuig gebrand sou gewees het. Ek dink daar is ook media footage wat sê dat, ek dink hulle sal hardloop op die voete of so iets, het ek op 'n stadium
of course,
gesien.
crime intelligence report earlier that morning, wasn't there, at the JOC meeting at 6 o'clock. Didn't it say that they wouldn't hand over their weapons and fight something to retain their position on the Koppie?
Dit is inderdaad so.
So the crime intelligence reported that too.
Dit was inderdaad so dat hulle nie die wapens sou neerlê nie en dat hulle sou resist
Yes.
en they were prepared to fight.
Yes.
Daarom het ek ook die konfrontasie voorsien. Sou ons begin uiteendryf nadat hulle nie hulle wapens sou neerlê
Yes,
nie.
yes, I understand.
Glad nie.
But you've told us very fairly you didn't foresee the earlier that the attack would take place before the disperse and disarm operation commenced. But you had received threats from them that they would attack the police. They were minded to attack the police that day. In fact, I think they said that all the police would be killed.
Dit is korrek,
But
meneer.
you must have discounted those threats that they made and not accepted that they were realistic. Am I right? Am I right, or am I oversimplifying?
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, is korrek. Ek het geglo wat daar gesê is aan ons.
But with each and every of those threats, was it foreseen that stun grenade would not dissuade them, tear gas would not dissuade them, water cannon won't dissuade them, rubber bullets would not dissuade any such intentions on their part?
Meneer die voorsitter, ek kan net praat uit my eie ondervinding uit. Soos ek gesê het, ek is 19-20 jaar bevelvoerder van openbare orde polisieering. Dit is nie die eerste keer wat ek 'n opdrag gee om uiteen te dryf nie, en dit het nog nooit gebeur nie. Waar ons dan stangranate gebruik, traangas, water, as ook wat ons noem 'n show of force, is dit hoogs onwaarskynlik dat enige groep verder sou beweeg het nader aan die polisie. Die gewenste uitwerking is altyd om die veilige pad te kies, en dit is weg van die polisie af so vinnig as moontlik om te verhoed dat daar op jou gevuur word of dat jy gearresteer word.
Unless they believed that they were invulnerable and invincible.
Nee, voorsitter, ja, ons het wel die inligting deur misdaadintelligensie wat gesê is dat deur misdaadintelligensie wat gesê is dat die storie rondom die Muti, dat hulle wel geglo het dat die polisie die wapen of iets niks aan hulle sal kan doen nie. So daardie inligting is wel deur misdaadintelligensie aan ons gestuur op 'n stadium. Sorry, meneer.
Chair,
Sorry, did you not believe it? I know you didn't believe that they would be invincible and invulnerable. I understand that. But did you not believe that the information that they, the strikers, may well have believed, that incorrectly, of course, that they would be invulnerable and invincible?
Nee, die voorsitter, ja, dit is soos ek gesê het, die polisie word daagliks aan sulke situasies blootgestel waar die inligting wel aan ons gegee is. Baie transitoerooftogte kry die polisie dieselfde inligting dat die persone deur 'n motie of 'n ritueel gaan en dat hulle niks kan oorkom, maar ons moet nog steeds op die einde van die dag ons doel uitvoer en die polisietaak uitvoer. Alhoewel ek die inligting as ernstig beskou het en ons het geglo, ons het wel na die tyd gesien wat aan my gerapporteer is, dat die persone die komberse en die laat klere wat hulle aangehad het, was baie verskillend van die wat op die koppie gesit het. Dit het ek wel na die tyd, nie voor die tyd raak gesien. Ons het ook getoets, ek weet of ek dit miskien kan noem, dat direk na die voorval het ons dan getoets die uitwerking van rubber, waar ons 'n kombers voor 'n teiken gehang het en gesien het die effek wat rubber dan op 'n teiken het. En inderdaad het ons agtergekom dat rubber glad geen effek het, selfs op 'n afstand van 10-20 meter op 'n kombers nie. So die persone was duidelik voorberei op die aanval teen ons.
There'd also been the incident of the 13th. There were no lessons learned from that.
Nee, voorstel, ja,
The Monday, the 13th. Two policemen were killed.
Dit is korrek.
I think rubber was used. There weren't water cannons, but stun grenades were used, tear gas were used. Didn't help.
Nee, voorsitter, alhoewel ek nie daar was nie, daardie inligting is wel met ons gedeel en ek dink dit is waar die hybride situasie ontstaan het en waar luitenant-kolonel Scott ingebring is, juis vir daardie beplanning. Die bevelvoerders het daardie inligting wat daardie dag gebeur het, wel gebring na luitenant Scott en ek dink dit is ingebring in die beplanning en dit is waar die fases dan opgebou was.
As opposed to Monday, there was no barbed wire. There was barbed wire on the 16th, was there not?
Daar was op die 16e definitief die pre-deployment, asook later die uitrol daarvan.
There was prior briefing of members before the operation on the 16th, no?
Nou voorsitter, ja, die oggend is gesê ons sou die draad pre-positioned, sou daar verder aksie kom, sou dit dan deurgegee wees na die bevelvoerders.
There was a definite agreed formations of where the people will be on the 16th as opposed to Monday,
Dit is korrek, meneer voorsitter.
where the TRT would be,
Dit is korrek, meneer voorsitter.
mounted police, dog units.
Ja, hulle was nie voor by ons, hulle sou agter by die forward holding area 1 wees en hulle het spesifieke take gehad vir die donderdag. Ek sal al van die woensdag.
The other criticism, if we may just round up all of these things, is that there was no communication to the strikers about what the police were going to do on the 16th. Is that criticism correct? Valid?
Meneer die voorsitter, ek dink dit is waarna ek verwys het, die gesprekke tussen die onderhandelaars en die protesters, waar ons meer as een geleentheid vir hulle gesê het, dat dit is onwettig, hulle moet hulle wapens neersit, en daar was heel wat kommunikasie tussen die onderhandelingsspan en die protesters op die koppie.
Was there a way, as the contention is sponsored, that the strikers, the 300, 400 armed strikers, misunderstood the purpose of the barbed wire?
Meneer voorsitter, ek sou nie getuig dat dit misverstaan is nie. Ek sou getuig dit was meer aspres deliberate, omdat ons het op hoeveel geleenthede met hulle gekommunikeer en met hulle leiers gekommunikeer, die doel daarvan. So ek dink nie daar was enige misverstand nie. Ek dink dit was 'n beplande aksie wat vooraf beplan was om die polisie so aan te val.
Yes, you're referring to the strikers now. You say your belief is that that the strikers had planned in advance to attack the police. Is that what you're saying?
Ja, meneer voorsitter.
Sorry?
Meneer voorsitter, ja, dit is op die vraag van meneer.
Yes. No, I just want to make sure I understand your answer. Yeah. Because it didn't seem to me very clear, but I think it's now clear.
Ja, die vraag was of daar 'n misverstand kon gewees het van hulle af, die doel van die, en ek sê daar was nie 'n misverstand nie.
You say there wasn't a misunderstanding, and you think they attacked not because of any misunderstanding, but because they had a plan beforehand to do so.
Ek glo so, meneer die Voorsitter.
Mr. Mpofu says that warning which was given to the media people about the operation coming on should have been extended to the strikers as well. What's your reaction to that?
Ek dink waarna verwys was ons op een van die SABC foto's waar een van die Nyalas gesê het, media go away. Ek dink dit was net 'n waarskuwing, soos ons ook sou sien. Ek dink kaptein Adriaan het media, kan nie sê konferensie gehou nie, maar 'n media inligtingssessie wat dan beskikbaar is voor die tyd, waar hy presies aan die media verduidelik het dat ons gaan oor na die fase toe en ons het die media probeer verseker van hulle veiligheid, dat hulle moet net agter die polisie inbeweeg, agter die polisielyn. Ek het dan ook verduidelik dat voor die defensive measure kon ek nie daai waarskuwing gegee het aan die persone, die protesters op die koppie nie. Dit sou sinneloos gewees het en dan sou fase 2 glad nie plaasvind het nie. Die incident 1 sou op daardie stadium miskien al plaasvind het, wat dan die gevaar baie meer blootgestel het aan die media as ook die polisielyn.
Just before you ordered that Nyala 1 must deploy the barbed wire, Mr. Matunjwa was leaving the copy. You remember that?
Dit was rondom 15:40 op die 16e. Dis reg, meneer die Voorsitter.
The criticism is that he was not given an opportunity to come and explain to you what efforts he is making and what prospects were there about his communication with the strikers. Remember that criticism?
Meneer die Voorsitter, ja, dit is totaal nie waar nie. Meneer Matunjwa het op die vorige 2 geleenthede, waarop 1 geleentheid na my, as ook die vorige geleentheid waarna u verwys het, die voorvalleboekinskrywing, ook na Papa 1 toe beweeg. So, ek dink hy het vry gevoel om die bevelsvoertuig wat hy dan geweet het, Papa 1 is, na toe te kom, en die vorige 2 geleenthede kon hy dit doen. So, ek kan geen rede sien waarom hy om 15:40 nie weer vir my kon kom en terugvoer gee oor wat die besluit was, suksesvol of onsuksesvol dan nie.
But on probabilities, if he was successful to have them lay down their weapons, he wouldn't have left like that, would he?
Chairperson, who's giving the evidence here?
I think
Is it Mr. Semenya or the witness?
Yes, all right. Mr. Semenya, it does sound a bit of a leading question, but I'll allow it in the circumstances. You realize, of course, if you ask a leading question, it sometimes diminishes the value of the answer. But anyway, the question's been asked, we'll get the answer, we'll evaluate it in due course. But in any event, it's an inference, I would have thought, from the facts, which we will have to make. But what do you say about
Mr.
that,
Matunjwa do?
Brigadier?
After his address, what do you see him do?
Meneer die Voorsitter, soos ek gesê het, op 15:30 toe ek daar kom, kon ek die draad uitgooi oor die redes wat ek genoem het. 15:40 het hy in 'n Silver Fortuner geklim en in 'n, as ek dit nou reg het, oos-suidelike rigting net wegbeweeg en verder gery.
So your point is you didn't deprive him of the opportunity of coming to you to report, if he had anything to report. He just drove away.
He just drove away.
He made no attempt to come to you. Presumably, if he'd come towards you, you would have waited to hear what he had to say. Is that right? Or would you have said, I'm not innocent, you just go away?
Nee, meneer die Voorsitter, as 'n operasionele bevelvoerder is dit nog steeds my diskresie op die grond, omdat ek in beheer is daar. Sou meneer Matunjwa na my toe gekom het en gesê daar was enige suksesvolle onderhandeling, of hy die mense oorreed dat hulle gaan nou die wapens neerlê, of enige in daai geval, was dit vir my baie makliker geweest, want dan sou ons nie oorgegaan het tot die uiteendryf aksie, dan sou ons van die Nyalas af nog steeds, soos met die onderhandeling, gekommunikeer het en vir hulle gesê het, goed, daar was aan my meegedeel, u sou die wapens neerlê, laat dit nou gebeur en dan beweeg hulle peaceful weg, en sou dit gebeur het.
Is it answer? I'm not sure you're answering the question really. The question is, did you deprive, did anything you do amount to a deprivation of the opportunity for Mr. Matunjwa to come to you to report to you the results of his second speech on that day to the strikers.
Ek verstaan nou die vraag, meneer die voorsitter. Nee, glad nie, meneer die voorsitter.
Was there any indication given by him that he wanted to approach him? Was there any indication given by Mr. Matunjwa that he wanted to approach you?
Nee, meneer, commissaris, hy het heeltemal weggery van my voertuig af, en glad nie na my voertuig toe gekom nie. Nee.
In fact, Mr. Pasha tells us they told Mr. Matunjwa that they are going nowhere. He must leave.
Meneer voorsitter, dit het ek op daardie stadium nie geweet nie. Ek het dit wel na die tyd verneem. En daarom my opmerking dat ek gedink het, daar was nie 'n misverstand nie, maar 'n beplande aksie teen ons.
The other criticism is that there could not have been any real negotiations with Colonel McIntosh because the police had nothing to offer. Were you supposed as police to offer anything in your dialogue with the protesters, strikers rather?
Meneer die voorsitter, in enige onderhandelingssessie, een van die tegnieke is dat die persoon sal eise stel en ons sal mekaar miskien halfpad ontmoet of ons het iets om te gee. In hierdie geval, die polisie was glad nie daar om te onderhandel oor enige loononderhandelings nie. So ons was nie in 'n posisie om hulle enigiets te gee rakende hulle eise van die 12.500 en dat hulle mense aanval. Wat hulle wel vir ons gesê is daar's dreigemente op hulle persone, wat ons wel vir die versekering gegee het dat die polisie se teenwoordigheid daar is. Dit is die een ding. Die ander ding wat ons hulle geoffer het is dat indien hulle wapens sou neerlê, ons sou voortgaan met 'n peaceful onderhandelingsproses. So ek voel daar is wel gesê dat hulle wapens kan neerlê en ons gaan dan voortgaan in 'n vreedsame onderhandelingsproses.
Doesn't it actually go further than that? Originally, the first discussions between Colonel McIntosh and the strikers, they asked for a message, as it were, to be conveyed to the employer.
Ek kom by my derde punt.
Sorry, that's your forgive me, please proceed with your third point.
Nee, dit was wat ek net volgende wou gesê het, meneer die voorsitter. Die derde punt wat ek wou maak is dat meneer Noki het vir ons pertinent gevra dat hy wil nie met die polisie onderhandel nie, maar wel met die mynbestuur. En ons het hom dan 'n versekering gegee dat die boodskap wel oorgedra gaan word en ook dat ons die volgende dag dit sou terugbring na hulle toe, wat dan ook so was. Op die volgende dag het ons presies vir hulle teruggebring die boodskap van die mynbestuur in detail, wat nou nie goed ontvang is nie, maar dit is die 3-4 goed wat ons wel vir hulle kon offer op daardie stadium.
If there's a criticism that there was nothing that you could really give them by way of a concession or anything of that kind as part of negotiations, it's not a criticism that seems to me prima facie, that can be leveled against the police. You were asked to convey a message to the employers, which you did. You gave the answer back. The employer wasn't prepared, and whether it's a matter of criticism or not isn't relevant at the moment. The employer wasn't prepared to come to speak to the strikers, and certain other messages were conveyed to the strikers, which presumably will be dealt with later when the Lonman people give evidence. But if it's correct that you had very little to offer the strikers, it's scarcely a criticism that can be leveled against the police. It seems to me, prima facie anyway.
Nee, dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter. Ek dink miskien as dit meneer White is, miskien die verwarring het ingekom deur normaalweg onder normale omstandighede as mens dan onderhandeling, soos hostage negotiator wat ek dan ook was in my lewe, daar is altyd iets wat jy kan offer, voedsel of water of enigiets, maar in hierdie geval nee, glad nie. Dit is korrek.
The other criticism is that you should not have used an interpreter, a Fanaga law interpreter from the enemy camp in quotes. Nee, de voorzitter, die enemy camp, u verwijst naar Lonman.
As ek
Yes, I imagine so. That's the only possible enemy camp that comes to mind.
ek is jammer maar ek het
You know, there was
ek het nie die term voorheen gehoor.
there was a standoff between the
Dit is
strikers and the
correct.
employer.
Ek verstaan.
The Funigalo interpreter used was supplied by the employer. That's the basis of the criticism.
Dit is korrek.
That's what Mr. Semenya wants you to deal with.
Nee, eerstens ons het hulle glad nie gesien as 'n die woorde wat gebruik enemy camp nie. Nee, meneer Sinclair het ek op meer as een geleentheid getuig dat hy het 100% samewerking gegee van die begin af. Die perseel wat hulle beskikbaar gestel het, die wyse waarop hulle inligting met ons gedeel het, die sekuriteitspersoneel wat op sekere plekke op die myn gedeploy het, wat dan deel was van hulle werk natuurlik. Maar daar was nooit enige konflik tussen ons.
I don't think you understand the question. You're explaining why you didn't see Lonman as the enemy, but what the criticism which Mr. Semenya is dealing with is that in the eyes of the strikers, Lonman were the enemy.
Okay.
And you were, I presume they contend, you were in a sense siding with the enemy because you were using an interpreter provided by, quote, the enemy, unquote. Not your enemy, but their enemy, someone they regarded in a hostile way. Whether those criticisms are valid, whether that's actually the way they saw things is another matter. But that's the basis of the criticism that you're being asked to comment on. Am I summarizing correctly?
That is correct, Chair.
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, miskien is my antwoorde wat ek probeer te lank voor ek by die punt uitkom. Ek sal dit korter hou. Dit is korrek. Op daardie stadium het die polisie niemand gehad wat in die taal van 'n galo dan vir ons kon translate. En meneer Sinclair het weer eens aangebied dat hulle het 'n persoon op die myn en dit was vir ons baie belangrik om in daardie taal dan dit so te doen. Sou ons iemand moes kry, ek dink die tydsduur om iemand op te spoor van buite af, veral in die polisiegeleedere wat van 'n galo praat, sou dalk lank gewees het en daarom het ons die interpreter gebruik van die myn.
Was there ever any objection raised? Did any one of the strikers ever say to you, look here, we're not prepared to talk to you through this interpreter because he's a Lonman interpreter. If you want to talk to us through an interpreter, get a neutral interpreter. Was that ever conveyed to you?
Meneer die voorsitter, nee, ons het in soverre mate moontlik die interpreter agter kolonel McIntosh geposisioneer. En ek dink as ek dit kan sê dat daar was nie fisiese, ek dink nie hulle het gesien op hierdie stadium die identiteit.
You're not answering my question. My question was a different question. That's the point we'll deal with in a minute. The question I was dealing with, did they ever raise an objection? I think you were trying to tell me they couldn't have raised the objection because they didn't know who the interpreter was. But that's not what I'm asking you. Did they ever say, look here, you are using a Lonman interpreter, or you may be using a Lonman interpreter. We're not prepared to deal with you if you're using a Lonman interpreter. Get a neutral interpreter, and it's a different ballgame. Did they ever say that to you? Anything along those lines?
Glad nie, meneer.
Did they ever object to the interpreter being used, or the particular interpreter, or the background of the interpreter, or anything of that kind?
Glad nie, meneer die voorsitter.
When Mr. Norkie came up to the Nyala and spoke to you through the hole in the front, would he have been able to see who the interpreter was?
Commissaris, ja, dit is wat ek miskien in die vorige antwoord probeer verduidelik het. Ons het hom so geposisioneer agter kolonel McIntosh. As jy kolonel McIntosh sien en miskien hy kom getuig, sal jy sien hy's 'n redelike blok van 'n man. En ons het dit juist met 'n spesifieke doel so gedoen. Meneer,
you chose a block van 'n man so that the interpreter couldn't be seen.
He's like a bakkiesbota, if I can explain the word block van 'n man. And then, but I think he might have seen on the first day during the negotiation Mr. Sinclair, which he might recognize. Maar daar was geen objection teen dit nie.
This interpreter, was he used on the Tuesday, the Wednesday and the Thursday?
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
So I suppose if these people went home at night and there was a sort of an information network among the Lonman employees, it's just possible that by the Wednesday they might have known, it's all speculation, but I mean, we can't exclude it. They might have known who the interpreter was, that he was a Lonman man. But the point is that you say it was that objection was never ever raised.
Glad nie, meneer die voorsitter.
If the objection had been raised, they said, look, I said what they might have said to you. Would you then have got a neutral interpreter from somewhere?
Meneer die voorsitter, as operasionele bevelvoerder sou ek dan gerapporteer het aan my oorhoofse bevelvoerder, wat dan die C-JOC is, en die besluit sou dan in die gesamentlike operasionele sentrum gedoen gewees het. Prosedure soos met 'n hof, ons sal dan aansoek gedoen het, ek glo by justisie of om iemand te kry om dan die interpreting vir ons te kom doen.
And there's a block of a man here.
Sorry, he's a block of a man. And not exactly in the Bucky's Portermile, but he won't go there now. Anyway, you want to say something?
Thank you, Chairperson. No, I just wanted, just for my own clarification, it's not an objection, Chairperson. Are this series of questions, is this based on some assumption that Mr. Noki knows all the employees of Lonmin, or that he would have known that this was not a policeman, or anything of that sort?
I understand that Mr. Semenya can tell us, but I understand what Mr. Semenya is doing is he's putting up objections which he understands have been raised, and he's giving the witness a chance to answer them. I can't recall who raised the point, even if it was raised, but that's because so many points have been raised. But I understand that's where Mr. Semenya is coming from. Mr. Semenya, am I right? Who raised the objection?
It comes from my learned colleague, Mr. Badlander, but if Mr. Mpofu wants the transcript line and page, I'll give it to him.
No, Chairperson, that's I think Mr. Semenya is missing the point. He's obviously entitled to challenge the so-called criticisms. All I'm asking is whether this challenge to the criticism is based on some assumption that Mr. Noki knows all the employees of Lonmin or not, or he knows that a particular interpreter is not a policeman. Which I think is, I don't think even Mr. Badlander would have premised the questions on that basis.
Well, we don't have to go as to what even Mr. Badlander would have done. But the point is, I think, that Mr. Semenya is putting criticisms that were raised and getting answers to them. Whether the criticisms are good or bad, whether the objection that you now raised to the criticism is one that will carry the day, we're not busy with the moment. He's simply putting criticisms that have been raised to the witness to give him a chance to answer. Am I right, Mr. Semenya?
Indeed, Chair. One of the big criticisms, Brigadier, one of the big criticisms is that after Scene 1 had happened and you had reorganized the line at the riverbed, you ought not to have gone to copy 3. And you had already told us that you were not aware that Scene 1 had happened. You were the operational commander. In that position, could you have stopped the operation at all?
By not knowing.
Without knowledge of Scene 1, would you have had reason to stop the operation and reassess so that you can decide whether to go or not to go to copy 3?
Nee, meneer de voorzitter, dit is waaroor ek getuig het. Ek het wel gehergroepeer. Ek het wel die voertuie in linie gekom. Ons het wel dit weer bespreek en ons is vorentoe. Soos ek getuig het, ons policy document voorskryf.
I know this, Colonel Scott has dealt with this, but there is also a criticism of using tactical units in an operation like this.
This is a new point you're moving on to. I was proposing to take the teardrome when you finished your previous point. If you want, I'm in your hands.
No, we can, Chair.
Okay,
I'm almost done.
We'll take the teardrome to this stage. the commission resumes. Brigadier, you're still under oath. Mr. Semenya, you can cross-examine in a moment. Sorry, carry on with your examination, Chief, in a moment. I'm sorry we came back later than we thought we would, but I had to swear in some interpreters during the interval. Mr. Semenya?
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask that we play Exhibit KK2, in particular that section dealing with the unfurling of the barbed wire, that demonstration or simulation?
Record that this is an exhibit. We have already, did we?
Yes, it is KK2.
No, I didn't. Well, if we did, I didn't make a note. So it's triple K, exhibit triple K2, and it's really videos taken at demonstration at Centurion on, it was
Thursday,
which was the 21st, on 21 November 2013. Do we have to describe it more accurately than that? I take it that indicates what the object, exactly the exhibit's about. Anyone who wants to see further can see.
That appears adequate, Chair.
It was a demonstration, I won't mark this exhibit this way, but it was a demonstration of a number of things, including the uncoiling of the barbed wire, and there was the workings of the Inyala, and there was the noise of the Inyala, and there was the noise of stun grenades, and I can't remember, were there rubber bullets as well?
And the siren.
Yes, yeah, what happened with the siren was that apparently, for some reason, the voice parts couldn't be activated for us. So we couldn't hear what speech over the loudhailer, what it sounded like. But we were told, and presumably this will be confirmed in evidence, I think perhaps the Brigadier can do it while he's here in the witness box, that the volume of sound of the siren that we heard, and which can be heard on the soundtrack of this video, is the same as the volume of sound of speech over the loudhailer. That's what he said. That's correct, Brigadier? Did I get it right?
Dit is correct, meneer de voorzitter. Is dit dieselfde luidspreker?
Yes, it's the same volume of sound as the speech would be.
Dit is correct.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now now that we've had that long preamble, we can now see the video.
Indeed, Chair.
Chair, we should mark as triple K3 the bundle of the pictures of the inside of the Nyala that was referred to yesterday by the Brigadier.
Well, I've changed my notes. It's now triple K3. And someone, I hope, will duly mark the. It's a disc of something of some sort. Is it this? But you can see how challenged I am as far as these matters are concerned. But it's a disc of some kind on which the video is to be found. Is that correct?
That is what it is, Chair.
This one, it says on it triple K2, so presumably some on the actual screen, so that's going to have to be changed.
Chair, the video of the demonstration is triple K2. Triple K3 is the bundle of pictures that was referred to yesterday of the inside of the Nyala.
So in fact, so I was wrong to change it. Mr. Semenya was correct. All right. Change it back in my notes to triple K2. Good, I'll change it back in my notes to triple K2. What we've just seen is an A-frame being collapsed onto the ground from the end of the trailer, on which it was, of course, vertical. It's now collapsed to the ground, it's now horizontal.
Dit is correct, meneer de voorzitter. Dit is gedoen deur die persoon wat opgeklim het bo op die draadkar. Dit moet fisies bo losgemaak word met 'n draad voor hy kan afval.
We can see the lower part of the body of someone who I remember was a policeman, who's climbed up the ladder, which is near the back of the trailer, and in fact demonstrated to us the untying, as it were, of the top of the wire of the barbed wire coil.
Correct, meneer de voorzitter.
the Njala is now moving forward. A number of policemen, I think about half a dozen, have picked up the A-frame and are moving backwards to the front of an Njala, which is parked behind the one which had the wire trailer. And we are now going to see the A-frame being attached to the front of the Njala, of the second Njala. Is that correct, Brigadier?
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, dit is hoe dit normaalweg as een Njala na 'n ander Njala toe beweeg, dan word die A-frame so naas moontlik aan daardie Njala laat val, sodat hulle hom kan vasmaak aan die neus van die ander voertuig.
We can see a number of members of the service who are now fastening this A-frame and with the wire attached to the second Njala, and they've got gloves on. They're using white gloves to protect their hands, obviously, against the spikes of the barbed wire.
Dit is beskermde handskoene en hy maak hom fisies met 'n stuk draad vas.
That A-frame looks like it's quite heavy, doesn't it, Brigadier? Because 4 people appear to be exerting a great deal of effort to put it up.
Commissaris, ja, die presiese gewig weet ek nie. Ek weet die draad op die kar het hulle vir my gesê weeg 'n ton. So die A-frame glo ek dit is 'n omgewing van 50 plus kilogram. Miskien 100, miskien meer. Dit een persoon sal hom nie kan optel en beweeg nie, nee.
What we can now see on the screen is the 2 members of the service, both of whom are wearing white protective gloves, have now come to the other side of the Njala, the one closer to the cameraman, and are presumably going to attach that side of the A-frame to the second Njala also. Is that correct, Brigadier?
Meneer die voorsitter,
Or are they detaching it? Have I got it wrong?
ja, ek dink wat ons hier probeer doen het, hulle gaan hom nou afhaal en dan sal ons die tweede demonstrasie wys die afstand. Ons was nou besig om hom terug te rol stelselmatig en dan sal ons demonstreer dat indien daar 'n spasie was van sê 5 of 10 meter die moeilikheidsgraad om dan die A-frame by die Njala te kry. Jy sal sien aan die onderkant van die draad verskeie voorwerpe, dit is maar van vorige uitrol waarna hy als vashak.
See, so I was wrong. They weren't coming around to the near side of the Njala to detach it. They were actually to attach it, but to detach it, and then to demonstrate to us the process of as it were, recoiling the barbed wire back onto the trailer. Is that correct?
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter. Wat jy nou sien is 'n proses, die persoon wat bo sit, ons het wat ons noem lang hakke, en dan die draad word dan opgerol terug op die 3 gebuigde pype.
Presumably, in normal practice, this process we're now seeing, this procedure we're now seeing, is not performed in the same circumstances of urgency as the unrolling of the wire sometimes takes place in.
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, wat ons nou sien sal gebeur na die tyd, nadat al die geweld gedeeskaleer het, daar is vreedsaam, alhoewel daar nog steeds mense sal wees wat dophou, maar nee, die sal gebeur in 'n vreedsame omstandighede.
What do we see now, Brigadier?
Meneer voorsitter, wat ons hier probeer voorstel het, sou daar 'n spasie van 5+ meter gewees het, as dit simultaneously gelyktydig sou uitgegooi gewees het, wys ons net indien die draad dan 5 of 10 meter weggelê het en die res van die draad nou gedeploy was, wys ons die eifrei moet nog steeds aan die nelle vasgemaak word. U sal nou sien met hoeveel geweld daardie lede probeer trek, en soos hulle trek, sal u ook waarneem dat die 6-rol draad nie meer sy vorm het nie, maar die draad, kan ek amper sê, verplat na die grond toe, so die draad is baie laag. Hulle trek hom op hierdie stadium, ek dink daar was 5-6 persone, dat hy kon nie by die nelle bykom nie. Dit is, die spanning is te veel.
Now we're being shown the inside of the Nyala, is that correct? With the seats and positions where various people sit. Something like this yesterday as well, didn't we? They were on photographs, I think. Now we see in the actual video, with what are known as the skitgate, which I don't know what the elegant English translation of that is, but the shooting holes doesn't sound right, does it? Like a porthole, except that it's not designed to keep the sea out of the cabin, but designed to enable shots to be fired from inside.
Oor die algemeen gebruik ons dit maar vir 'n lugreëling, meneer die voorsitter, want die lugreëling werk nie in die voertuie nie. So ja.
As if ventilation the holes might be an appropriate English translation.
Those are all the questions we have for Brigadier.
Thank you, Mr. Smenya. Mr. Butland, I understand the position is that you're going to cross-examine first. I did indicate that I thought it appropriate for Ms. LaRue to then be the first cross-examiner from the parties, because I understand you were not going to put the whole of Mr. White's criticisms to the witness, so far as they haven't been done already by Mr. Semenya, and you're leaving, and some of that material is going to be covered by Ms. LaRue, and so that seems the logical way to proceed. You first, then Mr. LaRue. And then, as I indicated yesterday, I'm not sure we've had proper applications from other parties to cross-examine under the rules, but I also indicated that I would expect these applications by tomorrow morning. I understand from what Mr. Budland told me in Chambers, he's not likely to be finished before Thursday in any event. So, but those who wish to cross-examine must please apply, indicating the topics they wish to cover, the approximate duration of the cross-examination, well, that's, I know, difficult to estimate, and then the documents to be relied on. The documents to be relied on will, if I allow the cross-examination on all the topics to which the documents refer, the document list will be made available to the witness, but the witness doesn't have to be told and won't be told in advance what the topics will be. I mentioned that because it was mentioned to me in Chambers this morning by Mr. Mpofu that there were concerns that the cross-examiners didn't want to show their hands to the witness, and I understand that. On the other hand, the rules are designed to ensure that the cross-examination proceeds fairly and the witness is not taken advantage of and dealt with unfairly. But anyway, I've indicated what we expect, and I trust those who wish to cross-examine will be able to comply by tomorrow morning, and we will then, in the course of the time thereafter, indicate whether the applications were allowed, and if so, whether in full, in respect of all the topics, or whether certain of the topics I will disallow. Of course, I'm not going to allow undue repetition, and it's difficult, of course, for an intending cross-examiner to know what topics other people will cover. So, but obviously, when the cross-examiner in question stands up to cross-examine some of the topics have already been covered, then obviously I'll make rulings in respect of repetition, which I won't allow. But that's something we'll deal with as and when it arises. Mr. Butler, are you ready to begin your cross-examination? Is your microphone on? Yes, it is.
I pressed the wrong.
If the Bucky's border-like form of Mr. Shasterson was
Mr. Chairman,
obstructing you.
there has been consultation between ourselves and a number of the other parties that may want to cross-examine. We want to indicate that we will file a notice tomorrow in accordance with the rules. But, Mr. Chairman, I want to remind our learned friends for the police that they are not allowed to consult the witness as to what the cross-examination may be. It is a rule which I believe everyone knows, that once a witness is being finished his evidence in chief, it is not proper, and I'm not for one moment wanting to make any allegations.
Mr. Bezos, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm sure we can accept without any hesitation at all that the legal team for the police, led as they are by eminent counsel, chairman of the General Counsel of the Bar, that they will adhere strictly to that rule.
The chairman of the bar and I go far back, Mr. Chairman, and I trust him implicitly. But I want to appeal to everyone concerned that these notices are not to be used by anyone in their team or by the police in order to precognize the witness as to what the cross-examination is likely to be. Something that I'm not blaming anyone in particular, which I have reason
I'm
to...
sorry, Mr. Bezos, I don't interrupt you, but what you are saying is, in fact, I'm sure you're not intending to do it, but in fact is a reflection on your learned friends, and I don't know if the reflection is justified. And even my understanding is the party calling a witness don't see the notice. So as far as I know, they wouldn't even be aware of it. But in any event, I know you don't intend it, but you know, it really does, if I give you my opinion, it does sound like a reflection, which I know you don't intend to cast, but it might be misconstrued by others that you, and I know you don't intend that to happen, but it's not necessary, and I'm sure they are fully aware of the rules, and but I don't know that they actually see the notice in any event. Am I right, Mr. Butler?
The list of exhibits to be used is distributed to all the
parties.
parties.
Oh, yes, and the witness sees it too. The witness also
and to
sees
the witness,
it. Yes, of course.
Yes.
No, but Mr. Bezos is concerned with topics. My understanding is that the party calling the witness doesn't see the topics. Am I right?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes. But
well,
anyway,
I should say there is a view that what they were seeing previously, and there is a view by some members of the SABC team that they ought to be entitled to see the list of topics as well. I think that remains an unresolved question.
Well, at the moment they're not seeing it, and if they want it, we'll have to deal with it later. But in any event, the point I'm making is that we have total confidence in the integrity of the members of the police team, and nothing that's been said is be regarded in any way as detracting from that. And I'm sure everybody here would agree with what I've said. But Mr. Bezos, anything further you wish to say?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Semenya, would you want to say anything?
No, nothing to say, Chair.
Right, Mr. Butland, have you got something to say? I take it in cross-examination.
Something to ask, not to say, Chair. Brigadier, I'd like to start by clarifying some preliminary matters to make sure we're all talking about the same issues on the same basis. Firstly, you referred in your evidence in chief to the three statements which you've made, and you explained that the first one, triple G3, which you made on the 19th of August 2012, was for the purpose of the docket in the criminal case to which you referred. Is that correct?
Good morning, Advocate. Meneer die voorsitter, dit is korrek.
Did you draft that statement personally, or did somebody else draft it?
Die verklaring is deur my neergeskryf.
And
Sorry, are we talking about
Triple G
G 13?
13, I'm sorry, I said 3, I think. Triple G 13.
Triple G 13. That's the statement dated the 19th of August.
A15 in the docket, as the chair pointed out. Brigadier, who asked you to make that statement?
Dit was, as ek onder korreksie is, generaal Johnson, as ek die van nie verkeerd het, wat hom beëdig het, dit was vir die dossier wat ingehandig is by die hof.
I think we're at cross purposes. I'm at Triple G 13. You told us that the following one was taken by General Johnson, one of the Triple F.
No, Mr. Bellin, I'm sorry. Both these statements, Exhibit Triple F15, which is the statement taken relating to the scene tampering investigation, which was which was led by Lieutenant General Munu, I think. That statement was attested before Major General Johnson, Charles Johnson, and the statement that you're busy with at the moment, which went into the docket, the docket in respect of which the accused were the various arrested persons, if I remember correctly, Exhibit Triple G 13. That was also attested before Major General Johnson. But the witness says, if I understand him correctly, that he was asked by, well, let him repeat it himself. Who asked you to make the statement Triple G 13? That's the statement which was filed in the docket in the case against the various arrested persons.
Dit was die ondersoekbeamptes, die speerders.
Thank you, that's what I understood, yes. And that we then attested it before General Johnson. You saw it before General Johnson.
Dit was in sy teenwoordigheid gedoen.
And can you recall what the charges were which the 259 accused were facing?
Meneer die voorsitter, op mas 134, ek het dit iewers, as ek reg onthou, dit was possession of dangerous weapons and public violence. As ek praat onder korreksie, ek dink dit is die twee sake op die dossier.
If you're not certain, I don't want to press you on it.
Ek is seker oor die twee, ek is nie seker of daar nog bygevoeg was.
We do have the docket, so we can check it to make sure it's correct. Then and can you recall who the investigating officer was who asked you to make that statement?
Nie op hierdie stadium nie, nee.
Thank you. Then the second statement which is Triple F15, also called Annexure K, you've explained you made in response to the allegations of tampering with the evidence at Scene 2.
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
And you've told the Commission that General Johnson, who was investigating the matter with General Munu, asked you to make that statement.
Ek weet nie of generaal Johnson self die ondersoek gedoen het, meneer die voorsitter. Ek het net gesê dit is in sy teenwoordigheid gedoen en generaal Munu was in beheer deur die nasionale kommissaris om die ondersoek te lei.
Just looking at it, it looks as though it's actually in General Johnson's own handwriting, that he wrote it down for you. Is that right?
Dit is inderdaad sy handskrif. Dit is korrek.
There was a team led by Lieutenant General Munu, who's the head of the CID, national head. Team under him, who, I think the names appear from the report we got, who were involved in the scene tampering investigation. Is that correct?
Dit is korrek.
Was he Major General Johnson, was he a member of that team?
Soos ek verstaan het, meneer die voorsitter, dit is korrek.
And then, just for the sake of completeness, the third statement, J 107, was prepared for the purposes of this commission.
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
Now, I want to just go to the background to the establishment of the commission. We know that on the 12th of August 2012, 4 Lonmin employees were murdered, apparently by certain of the strikers. I know you weren't there, but you're aware that that is the evidence.
Ek het so verneem na dit.
And then on the 13th of August 2012, 5 people died in a clash between members of the South African Police Service and certain of the strikers.
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
And then on the 14th of August, a further Lonmin employee was murdered, allegedly also by certain of the strikers.
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
Those are all, of course, very serious events. I'm sure we'll all agree. But then on the 16th of August, a catastrophic event occurred, which was 34 strikers were killed by members of the South African Police Service, and 69 were injured. And it led to a national and international attention and questions and criticism.
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
It was sufficiently serious that the president, who had been out of the country, immediately came home and announced that there would be a commission of inquiry to investigate the events.
Ek het so verneem, dink dit was op die 17e.
And I'm sure you understood that it was the deaths and injuries of the 16th of August which was the immediate trigger for the establishment of the commission.
Meneer die voorsitter, ek is nie seker of ek dink die vorige gevalle is ingesluit by die nie net die 16e nie.
Absolutely. That's why I refer to it as the trigger and why I referred to the previous events. There were previous serious events, but when this catastrophic event happened, then a commission was established into the whole sequence of events over that week.
Inderdaad so, meneer die voorsitter.
And it was clear that a major question which the commission would have to answer was whether the members of the South African Police Service were justified in killing 34 strikers and injuring 69 strikers on the 16th of August.
Dit is korrek, meneer voorsitter.
In fact, it was clear that this would probably be the major issue for the commission as far as the conduct of the police service is concerned.
Ek glo so, meneer die voorsitter, alhoewel daar verskillende, ek dink daar was 4 uit die insettings. Ek weet nie of dit die in die major en is nie, maar ek dink.
Now I'm sure we're on common ground there, Brigadier. Then another matter. Colonel Scott gave evidence that at a certain stage it was contemplated that Kopi 1 would be encircled probably early in the morning at a time when there was a limited number of strikers on the Kopi. You remember that?
Correct, meneer die voorsitter.
And the essence of the encirclement plan was that the Kopi would be encircled, and there would be only one exit, and the strikers could then be searched and disarmed when they left the Kopi through that exit.
Correct, meneer die voorsitter.
Colonel Scott gave evidence, and your evidence was really the same, as I understood it, that dispersal of a gathering is one of the standard procedures of crowd management.
Meneer die voorsitter, as jy bedoel die uiteendrywing, is dit 'n standaard prosedure, ja.
And when the people in the gathering do not disperse voluntarily or on orders, then it becomes necessary to use other methods, tear gas, water cannons, or rubber to get them to disperse. That's also a standard operation.
Dit is korrek, meneer Voorsitter.
And it's also, as you explained, and I think other witnesses have explained, not unusual to have the public order police working in an operation together with the specialized units.
Korrek, meneer Voorsitter.
Right. Then can I come on to another matter, Brigadier? Another preliminary question. We know that in terms of the SAPS instructions, SAPS members may not use pellets in their shotguns, they may only use rubber rounds.
Meneer die Voorsitter, ek dink nie daar is so 'n instruksie nie, want ons het nie pellets. Die voorskrif maak net voorsiening en beskryf net rubber. Ek dink nie daar is 'n voorskrif wat iets praat oor pellets nie, nee.
Well, there was evidence earlier, Brigadier, I hope I'm reflecting it correctly, that there was some correspondence about this. The pellets had been used at a certain point, and then it was decided at top level that in future only rubber rounds would be used because of the risk of serious injury or death caused by pellets. Are you aware of that?
Dit is 'n hele klompie jare gelede.
There were letters issued, I think, by the one in particular, issued by the National Commissioner, which really are a kind of addendum to the standing order which relates to crowd management. And the previous permission, if one can call it that, for the use of pellets was withdrawn for the reasons to which Mr. Butland has referred. I take it you're aware of that.
Correct, meneer Voorsitter.
Thank you. And we know, Brigadier, from our analysis of the medical records of those who were injured or killed on the 16th of August, that at least 6 strikers were shot with shotgun pellets on the 16th of August, and 2 of them died. Are you aware of that?
Nie op daardie stadium nie, meneer die Voorsitter, maar ek het wel dit so verneem na die tyd.
I don't think the suggestion is you knew at the time. The question is, you are aware of it now. It's something that's come out in the course of the investigation, particularly as seen from the post-mortem reports.
Correct.
And in the case of those who died, and the medical examinations of those who were injured. You are aware of that?
Correct.
Now, Brigadier, you were the operational commander, and I want to ask you, did any people other than members of the South African Police Service fire shots at the strikers at scene 1 that you're aware of?
Dit is negatief, meneer die Voorsitter.
And are you aware that anyone other than members of the South African Police Service fired shots at the strikers at scene 2?
Traag laat ek kennis daarvan neem, meneer die Voorsitter.
Brigadier, were there any people other than members of the SAPS and the Lonman interpreter in the Nyalas at scene 1 or scene 2?
Net in my voertuig, op die 16e was die interpreter, geen ander personeel.
And the other Nyalas and the other police vehicles, I take it, also had only members of the police service inside them, or were there other people also inside?
Tot my kennis, meneer die Voorsitter, net polisiebeamptes.
So the question becomes how it happened that some of the strikers were shot with shotgun pellets on the 16th of August. I think at both scenes, but I don't want to say that it is so. Is it possible that some police service members had shotgun pellets which they brought with them to Marikana, to the scene?
Meneer die Voorsitter, nee, ek glo nie dit is moontlik nie. In my vorige getuienis het ek getuig dat die groep en seksiebevelvoerders deel van hulle take was om dan hulle lede te inspekteer. Die inspekteur van hulle lede sluit in om die wapens, hulle uniform, hulle toerusting als na te gaan. En dan daardie bevelvoerders sal dan seker maak dat wat die mense hulle besit het. Pellets is baie lank terug onttrek en ek glo glad nie dat daar enige polisiebeampte is wat nog dit in sy besit het nie.
I understand. Let me put it differently. If any members of the police service brought shotgun pellets with them to the scene, they would have had to conceal them from their commanders, and they would have been acting contrary to instructions.
Correct, meneer die Voorsitter.
Is it possible that someone from outside the police service distributed shotgun pellets to members of the SAPS at scene 1 or scene 2? Pellets, sorry.
Nie volgens my kennis nie, meneer die Voorsitter.
You've never seen any evidence of that, and you've never heard that that happened?
Nee, meneer die Voorsitter.
So, Brigadier, the question then arises, how does one explain the fact that at least 6 strikers were shot with shotgun pellets at scene 1 and scene 2?
Meneer die Voorsitter, na die tyd, as ek my opinie kan gee daarop, is dat ons weet dat op die Sondag is die aanval plaasgevind tussen Amku en Nam. En ons is,
Well, I'm not sure it was between Amku and Num, but we do know that people who appear to have been strikers attacked the 2 security guards who were in the employ of Lonman, and I think may have been members of Num, but anyway, they were Lonman employees, security guards. They were killed at the scene that we know about.
Ek kon trek wat ek nou gesê het,
Yes.
die protesters het dan die NAM-personeel of die sekuriteitspersoneel aangeval op die Sondag, en ons weet dat 2 van hulle halgewere dan geneem is. Daar is ook aan my meegedeel dat die personeel van Lonman wel gebruik maak van, soos u dit stel, pellets. Die afleiding wat ons het is dat die groep protesters dieselfde groep moontlik kon gewees het, en dat hulle dit dan gebruik het in die aanval tot die polisie.
So what you said, the explanation you're offering is that the strikers who were shot and killed with shotgun pellets on the 16th were shot and killed by their own people.
Correct, meneer Voorsitter.
Is there any evidence to support that hypothesis?
No, Chair, it was put as a hypothesis. You can't ask for evidence to support the hypothesis.
Yeah, with respect, it's a hypothesis is explained.
I think you're entitled to ask if there's any evidence to support it. Of course, the other point is there's equally no evidence to support the hypothesis that either a policeman or somebody else fired the shotgun pellets and killed and injured the other people. But you've established that there's no evidence to support no evidence available to us to support the suggestion that it was either the police or London people who fired. So I take it it's appropriate to ask the corresponding question in respect of the other potential persons who fired fired off the shotgun pellets. So, but I understood these are preliminary questions intended to clear the ground. So, Mrs. Mendes, anything further you wish to say on the point?
Let's wait for this line of questioning, Chair.
So you can carry on. Meanwhile, I take it you're not going to take it much further.
No, I'm trying to explain a mystery, and the Brigadier has offered one possible explanation of the mystery, and I'm asking whether there's any evidence to support that explanation. We can come up with other possible explanations, but we're looking to see whether there's any evidence. And what the Brigadier has explained is, as I understand it, is he's not aware of any evidence either that it was police members or that it was members of third parties, as it were, or that it was some of the strikers, but he thinks it may have been some of the strikers. Is that a fair summary?
Meneer die Voorsitter, dit is inderdaad so, die enigste bewysstuk is dat ons weet die halgewere is geneem. Ons weet dat Lonmin personeel wel pellets gebruik, en ons weet dat dit is die protesters wat wel die halgewere geneem het. So daardie bewysstuk is wat voor ons is.
I understand that, Brigadier, thank you. Right, I now want to move on to a separate topic.
I'll just clarify something before you do. Did you observe any Lonmin security personnel in the vicinity of scene 1 or 2 while on the 16th?
Nie personeel wat aan my bekend is nie, as sekuriteit nie, commissaris.
Well, let me, just following up on Commissioner Hemraj's question, did you observe anyone other than strikers and members of the South African Police Service at scene 1 or scene 2?
Meneer die voorsitter, op toneel 2 was verskeie persone met siviele drag wat op toneel 2 was, wat onbekend was aan my. Ek glo generaal Naidoo wat by voorholding hier 1 is, kan verduidelik wie die persoon is.
Yes, we know that there were medical personnel and other people who came onto the scene after the event to deal with the consequences of what had happened. But I should have been clear, I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about as scene 1 and scene 2 and the events, the confrontation was playing out and the operation was being conducted. Were you aware of, let me ask the question more simply. At the time when the operation was being carried out, the dispersal and the disarming, did you see any person on the scene who was neither one of the strikers nor a member of the South African Police Service?
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, nie ten tye van die uitvoering van die operasie nie.
Of the people you saw in civilian clothing on scene 2, were any of them in possession of shotguns?
Commissaris, nee, ek kan nie spesifiek so iets onthou nie.
Would I be correct in assuming that the only shotguns you saw were in the possession of, I take it, POP members, who, as far as you were concerned, were using them to fire rubber balls, not even rubber bullets, rubber balls, I think. Is that correct?
Correct, meneer die voorsitter.
Brigadier, I now want to move on to another preliminary matter, which is the barbed wire. Now, there has already been some evidence that the South African Police Service obtained access to additional barbed wire through Lonman. You recall that? Perhaps I can show you, it'd be easier, fairer to show you the exhibit. Could you look at Triple J 97?
While you're doing that, I'm not sure to what extent the witness is aware of all the evidence that's been led so far. I don't think there's any reference to this while since he's been testifying. So it's probably better, as you suggest, to show him the exhibit. He has a file in front of him. It seems he may well have the exhibit in the file. Yeah. Is this as an exhibit?
Triple J 97.
Ek het hom as triple J 86.
97, Brigadier. 97.
Was this exhibit handed in at some stage?
It was handed in during the evidence of Colonel Scott, as I understand it. Yes.
Thank you.
One of the things we've got to do is, I think some of the future exhibits that were marked in the Triple J series, I think in the end they weren't all handed in. So that's why the question's asked. But we can review that at some stage, and those that haven't yet formally been handed in, we can consider. But I take it that the suggestion is that this one is one of those that was actually handed in, not one of those that was marked in advance and not actually handed in. Am I right?
I understand that it was referred to, Chair,
Right.
yes. But I'm not sure that anything turns on that.
We may turn it. I mean, we've got to get the record in order at some stage. But we don't have to worry about it now.
Brigadier, it's a two-page document. There's a letter from DLA Cliff Decker Hofmeyer with an attachment marked A. Have you been able to locate it?
Kan jy dit weer vir my die verwysingsnommer asseblief?
It's Triple J 97 is the exhibit number. You were given notice of the intention to rely on this document beforehand.
Meneer voorsitter, ja, hy is by my gemerk Triple J 197.
I see. Right. It was wrongly numbered, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You have seen the document, so you know what counsel is talking about.
Dit is korrek, ja. 197 by
I
my.
hope I'm right and the Brigadier's wrong. Can I just check that? Not just for this. It's correct. Yes, it is correct. It should be 97. Brigadier, I'll read it.
He's still trying to find it. Let's give him a chance.
Ek het dit, meneer
You have it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the council can proceed with the question. All right.
It's a letter from the attorneys for Lonman to the evidence leaders, and it's paragraph 1 says, I'll read it. Following the murders and severe damage to property on the weekend of 10 and 11 August 2012, our client needed, in addition to its normal security requirements, to secure various areas on its property, for example, K3, K4, and Wonderkop technical services, etc. This resulted from the most unusual security threats that emerged at the time. As part of these measures, our client placed an order for security fencing comprising flat wrap barrier wiring and large supporting poles, which occurred early on 13 August 2012. A quotation was received on 14 August 2012, and the order was placed for 6 sets of coils. Then the letter goes on in paragraph 2. On or about 15 August 2012, when the security fencing arrived, our client recalls the SAPS approaching it to request making use of some of this fencing. Our client was prepared to oblige if it was on a pay or replace what you use basis. Our client recalls that this was an informal approach, and it may have been Brigadier Calitz who made the request. Paragraph 3 says, as it transpired, SAPS did not make use of any of our client's security fencing, and the product orders was used by our client to secure its premises. Now, Brigadier, is the author correct? Is Lonman's recollection correct that it may have been that it was you who made the request?
Dit is negatief, nee, meneer de voorzitter.
Do you know who it was who made the request?
Meneer de voorzitter, dit was bespreek in die gesamentlike operasionele sentrum en dit was aangebied deur meneer Sinclair van Lonman.
So this was discussed, was it at a JOCCOM meeting or in the JOC?
Meneer de voorzitter, dit was van die begin af waar hulle gesê het, daar was nie genoeg draad om al die sleutelpunte te dek nie. En ek weet meneer Sinclair van Lonman het dan ook die draad wat hulle sekere van hulle sleutelpunte wou protect, as ek het so kan stel.
When you were present at that discussion?
Dit is correct, meneer de voorzitter.
I don't think it matters whether Mr. Sinclair offered or whether you requested or someone else offered, someone else requested. That's not the point. It's simply that an arrangement was made with Lonman that they would make the barbed wire or security fencing available to the SAPS as required.
Meneer de voorzitter, weer eens nee, nie deur die polisie versoek nie. Dit is Lonman wat hulle die sleutelpunte wou beskerm. Nie op ons versoek deurdat die polisie hulle draad sou gebruik nie. Nee.
So I'm not sure that I'm understanding you. Are you saying that the police never contemplated using this additional barbed wire?
Soos ek dit verstaan het, meneer de voorzitter, was dit om sleutelpunte wat aangedui is deur die myn te beskerm. Die polisie sou nie daardie draad in ons besit geneem het, soos hier verwys word na pay or replace what you use. Dit is nie in die mandaat, nie ek nie, glad nie, om aan te vra om draad van 'n buitedepartement te gebruik vir uitvoering van ons take nie. Nee.
So you say paragraph 2 of the letter is not correct because the SAPS neither requested the additional fencing nor had any intention of ever using the additional fencing.
Ons het nie daarvoor aangevra nie, nee meneer.
No, I understand.
No, I understand you didn't ask for it, but according to what you say, it was in effect offered. Certainly, Mr. Sinclair said they have it. So presumably, and he offered it, I take it, in the context of discussion in the JOC that there wasn't enough wire. Is that right?
Vir die operasie wat ons toe beplan het, dit is korrek, meneer.
Yes. Now, what Mr. Budliner wants to know is when Mr. Sinclair offered it, what was the attitude of the SAPS at that stage in regard to the fencing that was offered? I know your case is that that plan was later not proceeded with and replaced by the other one, but for as long as that plan was around, was on the table, as it were. What is the police's attitude to using the extra fencing that was offered by Mr. Sinclair? Am I right? That's your question, Mr. Bond?
Ja, daar was geen objectie daarteenoor nie.
No, I think we're still not understanding one another, Brigadier. I understand that you say you didn't request it, and I understand that you say you had no objection to the offer, but did the SAPS regard this as some reserved barbed wire which it would use if it was necessary?
U sal wel sien, as ek dit nou nie vooruit hardloop nie, op 'n latere stadium, na die operasie, is dit wel die voorstel gewees, maar nie op daardie stadium van die operasie nie.
I was proposing to take a comfort break at noon, at 12 o'clock. I don't know whether it's convenient for me to take it now or whether you want to round this point off first before we do that.
It would be convenient to take it now, Chair. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a comfort break for 10 minutes. The commission resumes. Brigadier, are you still under oath? Mr. Shastus. Sorry, Mr. Budlinder, I beg your pardon. Mr. Budlinder.
Chair, if my cross-examination is not satisfactory and you'd like someone else to take over, you can...
No, I don't know. I don't know whether I thought Mr. Shastus had grown a beard or something, but anyway, I got it wrong, but and I won't apologize because that implies something that I don't mean either, but
absolutely.
I correct the mistake.
It's not the most insulting thing that has been said to me, Chair. Chair, Brigadier, I just want to make sure we understand each other on the question of the Lonmin barbed wire. Is your evidence that additional barbed wire from Lonmin was or was not available to the police on the 15th of August?
Meneer die voorsitter, soos ek gesê het, op die 15de Augustus, soos dit in paragraaf 2 aangedui is, dat op die 15de het dit opgedaag, so op die 15de nee, was ek nie bewus, as jy reg onthou, ek was vroeg uit na die koppie toe, en ek het die aand 2200 uur omtrent teruggekeer, so op die 15de was ek nie bewus dat het gearriveer het nie.
And was additional barbed wire from Lonmin available to you on the 16th of August?
Dit is te wel genoem. Yes. Onder my aandag gebring.
He says onder sy aandag, it was brought to his attention, I take it.
Ja, onder my aandag.
And who brought it to your attention?
Nee, ek kan nie vir jou nou sê nie, maar het...
Would it have been one of your colleagues or someone from Lonmin?
Ek glo...
Well, if you can't remember, you can't remember. I know don't be unfair to you, but you said it was brought under your attention. The question is, was it done by, you can't remember by whom, but was it by one of your colleagues, or was it by someone from Lonmin, or
ek kan
one or the other, you
ek kan
can't be sure?
verseker nie sê nie. Ek weet dit was op die terrein neergesit en ek dink dit is daaroor gepraat, maar wie vir my gesê het, kan ek nie vir u nou noem nie.
Could I ask the operators to put up the exhibit J86?
Or J86, are you moving away from J97? Because we haven't seen Annexure A, which is the second page. Para 4 talks about a copy of the price estimate is attached marked A. And then it goes on to say the second item for 198,250 Rand was not ordered or supplied. But are we going to see the Annexure A? If you're going to come back to it later, not me to tell you how to run your cross-examination.
No, not for my purposes, Chair. If members of the Commission would like to go there, I'm not planning to go there. Could we then have J86 on the screen? Brigadier, I think you won't find that in your... Oh, you got it. Good.
Please, may I ask one or other of the members of your team, I think we have seen this, yes indeed, it wasn't it, to whenever a J document is referred to that's not being put in as an exhibit, one of the ones that was passed over, that's the right word, to alert me to it so I can officially receive it, as it were, as an exhibit. But we have seen this one, I remember this one.
Yes, this we have seen. This
to tell the witness what it is, because unless he knows.
I'm about to tell him, Chair. This is a photograph taken by Lieutenant Colonel Vermaak at 9:38 a.m. on the 16th of August. And we can see on the first photograph with a red circle around it, a stack of barbed wire. Do you see that? Or stacks of barbed wire.
Ek sien dit, meneer die voorsitter.
And we can see it better on the next page, where we see a large number of rolls of barbed wire and what looks like one barbed wire trailer. Do you see that?
Dit is correct, meneer die voorsitter.
A-frame is unmistakable, isn't it? So the A-frame is unmistakable of the trailer.
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, ek kan nie met sekerheid sê dat dit onsin is nie. My 6 Nyalas staan in die voorgrond met die 6 draadkarre.
Now, that barbed wire and trailer are on what we could describe as part of the land, part of the ground being used by SAPS for its operation. Was that fair?
Dit is die perseel van Middelkraal waar alles plaasgevind het.
The question is that those premises were made available to the SAPS, that you were using them. Is that correct?
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
And do you know what the source is, what the source was of those rolls of barbed wire and the trailer?
Meneer die voorsitter, soos ek reeds getuig het, dit was die kommunikasie van Lonmin om hulle sleutelpunte te beskerm en soos u meegedeel het, dit het die 15de gearriveer wat ek wel later meegedeel is. Maar die doel was, neem ek aan, om die sleutelpunte te beskerm.
Do you know whose vehicles those are that we see close to the barbed wire and the trailer?
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, het lyk vir my na een sedan, 'n bakkie en dan 3 minibusse. Ek kan nie sê nie.
And to the left of the photograph, there are 2 larger vehicles, or 3 or 4 larger vehicles. Do those look like police vehicles to you?
As jy verwys na die Nyala voertuie, die 3 Nyala voertuie en die Casper en die Scorpion, dit is polisievoertuie, hulle is duidelik gemerk op die dakke. Die voertuie wat betrokke was in die operasie, is gemerk boop.
Yes. Again, I don't want to argue with you, I just want to make sure I understand your evidence. Is it your evidence that this barbed wire and trailer were placed there by Lonmin for their own use, or was it placed there for possible use by the SAPS?
Op hierdie stadium was dit deur eie gebruik. Ek het verneem dit is om hulle eie sleutelpunte dan te beskerm. Op die dag wat die foto geneem is, die 16 waar ons uitbeweeg het, definitief nie vir ons gebruik op daardie dag nie.
Now, I know you didn't use it. What I'm asking is whether that was there for your purposes if you required it.
Die voorsitter, dit is nie met my bespreek in soveel sin nie, maar ek glo, indien ons dit miskien sou nodig gehad het, was dit daar gestel.
And we know that on the 18th of August, the Saturday, you did have the use of barbed wire made available by Lonmin.
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, ek kan verwys, ek weet nie of dit 'n bewysstuk is nie, my videotranskrip van die 18de. Ek sien die staan op 049 MTS op bladsy 2. As ek hom miskien kan lees.
It is an exhibit. Perhaps we can be given the exhibit number to make it easy for us when we read the record later. What's the exhibit number of the transcript?
Triple J 82.
Thank you. So you're referring to Triple J 82, that's the transcript of what you said. You're referring to a particular paragraph or page. I can't remember how it's done, but it's a page. It's on the second page, is it?
Het is tweede bladsy.
And the times are indicated.
En daar is 'n 15:15 op die tweede bladsy. Net voor die sin. Ek kan op die skerm agter u kan ek aandui met die rooi. Dit is daar.
5:15.
15:15. You mean 5:15? You mean 5:15? You, like in the case of that exhibit we referred to before, one has crept in front that shouldn't be there. Is that right?
Dank u vir die
It's
regstelling.
5:15.
5:15.
And that's the top of the screen.
Dit is korrek, meneer die
So
voorsitter.
5:15, for those who want to find it later, is right near the end of the line. There are 2 words after it. What you said was then the mine, we got additional barbed wire that can cover about 1 or 2 kilometers. The other barbed wire, they will also make it available with their vehicles. That's what you said.
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter. Dit is waarna ek voorheen verwys het toe ek gesê het op 'n latere stadium het ons dit wel tot ons beskikking gehad en dit was vir die doel wat ons praat van 'n basecamp wat dan uitsluitlik vir die polisie se gebruik is.
And just to put beyond doubt that which I think has no doubt, when you talk about they making it available, that was Lonman who made it available.
Dit is korrek.
Had you wanted to use those rolls of barbed wire on the 16th, what process would you have had to follow to put it in a position where you would be able to deploy it?
Commissaris, indien ons dit wel sou gebruik het wat op daardie oggend die beplanning was, sou ons dit gebruik het wat ons verwys na 'n basecamp. So ons sou fisies voertuie moes gekry het waarop dit gelaai kon wees. Ek dink op daardie stadium was daar nie die A-frame trailers wat ons nou van weet nie. So dit sou fisies met die hand dan uitgekoil moes gewees het ek dink ons sou daai draad gebruik het by kopie 3 wat bekend staan as sien 2.
Then, Brigadier, just to come back to the answer which you gave to one of Commissioner Hemraj's questions, could we have photograph 223 of Warrant Officer Ramanala on the screen, please?
Is this an exhibit, or must we make an exhibit now?
It will have to become an exhibit now, Chair. I'm informed that it's in the Ramanala series already.
So what's the exhibit number?
Told it's J29, Chairperson. Point whatever it is. And this is number 265.
So it's J?
So 29. Point 265.
Is this one that we've seen already? Or is it, is it one of the J exhibits that already been put in? Or is it one of the unused ones which now has to be marked?
Chairman, I'm advised that the whole series has been put in, but I don't think it's been specifically referred to.
Mr. Budlander, I raised at some stage that the whole of the J was handed in, but Mr. Budlander, Mr. Chaskelson referred to certain of them, and I was a bit concerned about the status of the other documents. They haven't been referred to. When I went through them, it looks like there's a lot of information on them, and I wasn't quite sure what we were supposed to do with them.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair, I don't think this has been referred to in evidence. Mr. Chaskelson will...
Chairperson, this is one of the exhibits that has in fact been referred to. Chairperson, you may recall that all of the photographs and videos, a screenshot was put up that was the physical exhibit that was displayed with images of each one of the underlying files, and the files were also admitted under the name, in this case, J, what was it, 29.106 to 300 and something. Commissioner Hemraj's question relates to a different category of exhibits in the J series. There were some J exhibits to which no reference was made at all in the evidence of Colonel Scott. At the end of Colonel Scott's evidence, my learned friend, Mr. Semenya, and I reached an agreement that those exhibits would go in as exhibits, but their status at present would be nothing more than documents which are described by the evidence leaders in the terms in which they are described on the index. And they certainly wouldn't be accepted as proof of their contents at this stage, and it would be open to SABC to dispute anything in those exhibits if at a later stage anybody wanted to place reliance on them. But they are in and will in due course be put to individual witnesses.
Well, may I suggest that we should have a list of those which we can make an exhibit on its own, as it were, so for the purposes of housekeeping and keeping the record in a easily comprehensible state. That's the first bit. The second thing is, you referred to exhibits that, as you say, which indicated different files, and we saw little, I think you call them a thumbnail, don't you? Small little rectangles which were individual files. Now, am I correct in thinking that this particular picture we're looking at now is one of those? In other words, it wasn't specifically referred to, but it was before us as a thumbnail. Am I right, or have I got that wrong?
That's correct, Chairperson. At the time, I indicated that the underlying electronic files for each one of the photographs or each one of the videos would also be exhibits numbered with the same J number with a full stop and the photograph number afterwards.
Right, well, that had better be dealt with, I take it, in a similar way to the ones I've just talked about. In other words, we should have another document which reflects each of these numbered thumbnails and says shortly what it is, what they're supposed to represent. Because otherwise, again, we'd have the situation, we've got exhibits before us which we haven't really seen except as passing thumbnails in the night, as it were. But anyway, we don't have to debate that further now. It's a housekeeping matter which can be sorted out. But now that we're looking at this picture, can either the Brigadier or Mr. Butlander tell us what it's supposed to be? Thank you. I've been informed that we have in the Triple J series a list of each of these things, but with a little short cryptic narrative statement. So we have got that before us already. So the remark I made earlier falls away in respect to the second category. What number is this one?
This is Triple J 29, photograph number 223, Chairperson. 29.223, in other words.
You see, all we have here then on the list is Triple J 29, as you said, 29.105-29.307. So it's simply in as a batch of 203 photographs by Ramanala. So obviously we're going to need a little bit more narrative about them. So I reinstate what I said a moment ago about the second category. Do we know what exactly this particular one is? What's its number? And can either you or the witness perhaps tell us what it represents?
Its number is 223. And Brigadier, this is one of a series of photographs which we were given of a series taken by Warrant Officer Ramanala at scene 2 late on the afternoon of 16 August. Does that photograph look to you like it is a photograph taken at scene 2 late on the afternoon of the 16th of August?
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, ek kan nie sê wat sy tyd dit geneem is nie, maar dit is definitief hoe ek toneel 2 waargeneem het met die persone wat voor lê.
May I say that if we're going to see any more pictures like this, we better have a warning beforehand. I take it none of the bodies is really recognizable on this one, but may be a problem in respect of any others that you may be wanting to refer to.
No, Chairperson, there's no need for a warning. These are arrestees.
They're all alive, these people. They're all your clients.
Yeah, they're all alive, Chairperson. If they are my clients, they are alive.
All right, well, so my intention to give a warning falls away.
Yes, Chairperson.
Brigadier.
Please proceed, Mr. Button. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Brigadier, will you look at the person in the middle of the photograph with a yellow or orange hat? You see him?
Dit is correct, meneer die voorsitter.
Khaki, actually, I would think. But, and he's got what looks like a kind of a haversack on his back. Is that right?
I'm colorblind, Chair. I accept khaki. Does that look like a member of the SAPS to you?
Nee, meneer die voorsitter.
The photograph is not altogether clear, but it looks as though he's holding something in his hands, a weapon of some kind. Can you see that?
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, ek kan sien daar is 'n voorwerp in sy hand.
Not altogether clear what it is, but perhaps we can all draw our own conclusions. It's not for you to give evidence about what it is. Can we then go to the next one?
Before you carry on, can I ask you a question? You say this is not a member of the police service, this person.
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, die polisiedrag en die rugsak en ek sien hy staan saam met 'n persoon wat lyk soos asof hy mediese behandeling gee. So nee, dit is
I see that there's a person in front of him that, bending over one of the people lying on the ground.
Ek dink dit is mediese personeel.
So have you any idea who this person is or may be, the one we're talking about with the khaki hat?
Glad nie, meneer die voorsitter.
Could it be a paramedic or someone like that? Or weren't the paramedics dressed like that?
As ek moet 'n afleiding maak en ek kyk na sy rugsak en toerusting, dit is heel moontlik dat hy dan saam met die paramedici deurbeweeg het, maar ek dra nie kennis nie.
Just for completeness sake, that's a photograph taken at 16:56, 4 minutes to 5 that afternoon. You obviously can't comment on that.
Are you able to identify? Are you able to identify what that gentleman has in his hand?
Commissaris, nee, ek sien dis 'n voorwerp, dit kan moontlik 'n wapen wees, in die manier waarvan hy dit vashou, maar kan nie identifiseer wat hy vashou nie, nee.
Can we go to the next one, which is 265, which is a bit clearer? This is again triple J 29.265. Now, there we see those two men on the left. Do they look like members of the police service to you?
Dit is negatief, meneer die voorsitter.
This is photograph number 265. Can you identify from who they are or what organization they're working for?
Ek dra glad nie kennis nie, hulle is glad nie bekend aan my nie.
You didn't see those people on the scene on the 16th when you were there.
Ek het wel getuig, meneer die voorsitter, dat daar was persone wat siviele drag gehad het wat ek nie kan.
This may be one of the people you were referring to.
It might be, as ek kyk na hulle uniform of die hemde wat dieselfde is, neem ek aan hulle is dan van dieselfde firma.
The gentleman on the left has got a cigarette, looks like a cigarette in the left hand, but that's not important. He appears to have a weapon of some kind in the right.
In sy regterhand is beslis 'n haalgeweer wat hy dan op sy tone balanseer.
So that is evidence that, I'm sorry, let me just say this. That's a photograph taken at 11 minutes past 5 that afternoon, also by Warrant Officer Ramanala. So that's evidence of at least one person, and perhaps the other one is evidence of another person, not a member of the South African Police Service, with a weapon on the scene at scene 2 after the shootings. Is that fair enough?
Soos ek getuig het, meneer die voorsitter, dit is moontlik. Ek glo die persone wat van forward holding hier een af soontoe beweeg het, kan getuig of die persone saam met hulle was.
Yes. Brigadier, the second person, the one more or less in the middle of the photograph, wearing a similar uniform to the one with the shotgun, he appears to have something either in his right hand or on his belt near his right hand. Are you able, with your knowledge of these matters, to tell us what it looks like to you? Perhaps it could be zoomed into if that's possible. Looks as if the zooming exercise isn't helping us, except it shows it is an object of some kind. I would have thought that I'm not authority on these matters at all. It looks to me as if it might be a sidearm of some kind, but I would bow to your superior knowledge on the matter.
Meneer die voorsitter, ja, ek kan nie sien of dit in sy hand is en of dit iets wat in sy broek vas is of hang, of ek kan nie duidelik sien nie.
Does it look like a sidearm? Or could it be something else?
Nee, nie van hierdie, ek kan nie met sekerheid sê dit is 'n wapen nie.
They both appear to be wearing body armor. They look like they have radios on them as well.
Dit is hoekom ek gesê het, commissaris, ek neem aan hulle is van dieselfde firma, aangetrek, tipe van dieselfde uniform. Ek is nie seker wie dra daai tipe van uniform nie.
The weapon that the man on the left is carrying, you said, is a halfgeweer. That's a shotgun. Is that correct?
As ons net kan links beweeg op die foto.
Could we just move left so we can see the man on the left again? fully. That looks like a shotgun, doesn't it?
He's
Dit
already
is
said it was a shotgun.
dit is beslis al
He
gebeur.
said he's resting it on his toes. He said.
Of ja, sy voet.
Thank you, Brigadier. Now, there's one further photograph in this series which I'd like to show you. If that can be put on the screen. What number? That's not in this series. Perhaps there it is.
Tell us what this is for the sake of the record. Is it an exhibit already? Or is it going to be one of the ones that's going to be referred to in the list that I spoke about? Sorry? Already before us?
Now, ask Mr. Chaskelson to explain what it is, what its source is, Chair.
Chairperson, it's photograph 9472 of Warrant Officer Barnard's photographs. I'm just getting the Triple J reference for them.
It's one of the pictures of which we had a thumbnail.
It should be. Triple J 27.9472.
The camera is zooming in on detail of this photograph. Perhaps Mr. Wesley can point to what the significant element. This is a man, either the same man or another man wearing the same sort of khaki hat.
It does look like the gentleman we saw in one of the earlier photographs with the gentleman with the khaki cap or hat or bonnet. And the object that we had difficulty in identifying looks more like a shotgun now than it did before. Would you agree with that?
Dit is korrek, meneer die voorsitter. As ek my opinie kan gee, ek dink dit is miskien die foto behoort baie naby aan dieselfde tyd geneem het. Ek dink die ander een was net van die ander angle van die regterkant geneem, want die persoon staan nog steeds voor hom, so dit lyk of hy dan op hierdie stadium lyk of hy beskerming gee vir die mediese personeel voor hom, maar ek ken nog steeds nie die persoon nie en ek kan sien daar is nog steeds iets in sy hand.
Yes, we also concluded that it's at about the same time from a different angle. If you look at the small screen, you get a much better picture of what he's holding. Now can you see, if you look at the small screen, can you see what he's holding? Looks like a shotgun, doesn't it?
Dit is korrek, na die klein skerm is beter visueel.
Thank you.
There's another person just to the right as we look at the picture that's on the small screen. There are two people with a gap between them, and the one on the right-hand side, is that a member of the police service? He has something which is pointing down to the ground. I think he's actually resting on the ground. That may be a member of the police service. I take it, is that a member of POP? He seems to have a helmet of some kind with a visor. Am I right?
Meneer voorsitter, miskien net as ek kan sien waar net weer verduidelik waar ek moet kyk.
No, I don't think it helps to look at the screen, the big screen, because it's not as clear as it should be. Yeah. Better to look at the smaller screen. Now, if you look at the smaller screen, you see the gentleman with the khaki bonnet, or cap, or hat.
Correct.
And then behind his left shoulder is, I take it that's a member of the police service with a helmet and a visor. Is that right?
Dit wil voorkom of hy
behind his right, immediately behind the left shoulder of the gentleman with the khaki headgear.
Met ietsie met 'n rooi streep voor.
Yes. And then there's a gap. You can see with some vegetation behind the gap. And then further to the right there is someone with what looks like, is it a shotgun resting on the ground?
Meneer voorsitter, ja, as ek kan die afleiding maak van sy helmet, dit sal 'n openbare orde polisieringslid wees, so dit moet 'n halgeweer wees, ja.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier. I've got no further questions on these photographs, Commissioners. So I propose to move on to another topic.
Sorry, Chairperson, before we move away from this photograph, I just want to see it not in this perspective, the full photo as it was shown originally. Yeah. See, there's the person with the right thing, with the uniform.
If you could go to the extreme left of this photograph, please.
Thank you.
They might look like there's some gentlemen there in civilian clothes as well, who might be in that same uniform we saw in the previous photograph. So if we could zoom into the extreme left-hand side.
Thank you.
Can you see clearly, Mr. Popper? My impression is the big screen it doesn't have the same definition.
Yes.
No, you have another screen with
I've got both. I've got both, Chairperson. I just wanted to see the uniform.
I was concerned that you have a clear view, but you have.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Well, the two people that appear just behind the gentleman that's bent over, are they not SABC police personnel, are they?
Commissaris, nee, die persone wat agter hom staan het weer eens die rooi op die skouer.
Yes.
So dis volgens my nie polisielede nie. As ek kyk na die surgical gloves, neem ek aan dit sal deel wees dan van die mediese span wat die persone dan behandel.
Well, they're also wearing body armor, aren't they?
Dit is van dit is ook maar gesê van dieselfde firma, so dit mag wees dat hulle dan van die personeel is. But
Chef, perhaps I can, sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Just to clarify, our understanding is that is a uniform worn by Lonman Security. We'll get that confirmed. Perhaps it can be confirmed now.
I need to take firm instructions, Mr. Commissioner, but I understand it is Lonman Security who accompanied medical personnel onto the copy who were not prepared to attend to wounded and injured people unless they felt the area was secure. If I can confirm that, please.
Can you firm up those instructions, if that's the correct expression, and tell us after lunch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right. I now plan to move on to a couple of short matters, Chair. Are we taking the lunch adjournment at 1 as usual?
One will talk to you thereafter, but when we reach a suitable stage, it's now 7 minutes to 1, I think. When we reach 6 minutes according to the screen, when you reach a suitable stage, you can tell me.
Thank you, Chair. Now, Brigadier, after the events of the 13th of August, that's the Monday when 5 people were killed, the operational plan had to be updated as a result of what had happened. Is that correct?
Dit is correct, meneer.
Now, do you know who was instructed or tasked to update the operational plan after the events of the 13th of August?
My getuienis was, meneer Voorsitter, dat die provinsiale commissaris die opdrag gegee dat generaal Mpembe oorhoofs en ek operasioneel geplaas word, maar ek dra nie kennis wie presies die plan getik het nie.
Type the plan. There was a plan which we've got a copy of, which was a very rudimentary kind of plan, but to be fair, it was drafted for a totally different situation, really. We know the plan was thereafter substantially amended and amplified and so forth. To your knowledge, was some particular member of the service given the task of doing that, or some member or members given the task of doing that? And if so, who was or were they?
Nee, dit is korrek, meneer Voorsitter. By die openbare orde polisiereingseenheid op Rustenburg is daar wat ons noem planners. So dit sal een van die personeel gewees het.
It sounds then as if you don't know. I mean, you're saying it would have been one of the planners from Rustenburg, which means that you're making an assumption, which may or may not be right, but you're making an assumption, but you don't really know. So you're obviously not the right person for the question to be asked to. Is that right?
Dit in die naam nie, nee meneer, maar ek glo Luitenant-Kolonel Marafi, wat die bevelvoerder is, sal meer detail hê oor presies wie die plan samenstel.
But you were not one of the people who was part of the team which updated the plan.
Nee meneer voorsitter, nie daardie aand nie. Die plan is wel aan ons voorgelê later.
And we now, just to be clear, were you instructed or tasked to update the operational plan after the events of the 13th of August?
Meneer voorsitter, verstaan ek die vraag? Dis dieselfde vraag wat u nou net
I just
gevra
want
het.
to make sure that I've asked the question clearly and I've got that you haven't misunderstood me.
Nee, dis dieselfde vraag. Ek verstaan u vra dieselfde vraag. Nee, ek was nie
You
betrokke.
weren't. Thank you. My lack of clarity, Brigadier, not yours. Now we know that at a certain stage, the Phase 3 disperse and disarm plan had to be developed on the 16th of August. You remember that?
Kolonel Scott het die voorligting gegee die oggend van die 16de en daarna verwys net.
Did you participate in the development of the Phase 3 disperse and disarm plan?
Meneer die voorsitter, soos ons getuig het, dit was nooit in detail bespreek nie. Dit was die plan wat Luitenant-Kolonel Scott opgestel het, wat op die 16de van die oggend vir ons gesê is dat ons gaan prepositioned en sou ons by daardie fase kom, sou dit aan ons duidelik gestel het. Nee.
As I understand your evidence, he said, it was said at the JOCCOM meeting early that morning that the plan, you will go to Phase 3 if necessary, and he then subsequently developed that Phase 3 plan. Is that your evidence?
Ja, Colonel Scott said to us that morning that should we go to Phase 3, that will be clearly communicated to us.
And he developed for the plan for it, and you were not part of that process.
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, hy het al die fases van die begin af saam met die mense wat ons vir hom beskikbaar gestel het om hom by te staan, die plan ontwikkel.
Chair, would this be a convenient time to take the adjournment?
Yes, we will take the adjournment. We'll try to come back at quarter to 2 or soon thereafter, as everybody's ready. But please try to be here by then.